We've made it. The show
Yes,
we've been
we have.
anticipating for years since we started doing the show.
Yeah, this is definitely the one.
Momentous occasion. Main event, sell out anywhere in the world.
Yep. And this was also a bit of a surprise because I was quite certain that King of the Ring was going to be the worst pay-per-view that we were going to cover in all this. And this one at least gives it a run for its money.
The thing about this is the undercard's actually really good. The undercard is surprisingly good on this show. The
That's
important matches are dog shit, but the undercard was surprisingly good here.
Yeah.
The show almost gets worse as it goes along, with a couple exceptions, but
Maybe.
So we get an opening video package, letting us know what we have in store for us. Shows clips of Diesel and Mabel, Brett versus Isaac Yankem, Shawn versus Razor, and Taker versus Kama. So we know we're in for a treat with that lineup. We are here at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena.
Yeah.
With Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler on commentary.
With Doc Hendricks tagging in.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, he'll be on the show. So we start off, and it's funny because we've covered covering this stuff chronologically, especially now that we're getting multiple promotions involved. We have seen some stuff with Dean Douglas, that classic three-way match between him, Terry Funk, and Sabu, him throwing down the NWA, spitting on the NWA and declaring ECW's extreme. And then he fucks off, comes here, comes to the promised land, where they put him in front of a chalkboard.
In a satellite teaching room.
Yeah, which turns out that they kind of exposed their own lie on that later in the show.
Yep.
Because a satellite implies that this is not in the building where the show is taking place, that this is being done remotely. But Vince throws to Dean Douglas, who's going to be grading the show throughout. He does a whole thing with the nails on chalkboard.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that they dubbed that sound over the video, but it was still pretty bad nonetheless.
Yeah. So he's going to be conducting summer school here, he says. It's kind of funny because it's SummerSlam. I like it. He defines the word Dean. I will say, because I'm not the biggest Shane Douglas fan. I never have been, but I give him credit. Obviously, his best run was in ECW, where he played an edgy heel who cut fantastic promos and was a capable in-ring performer. He obviously, and we can see that in shoot interviews and things like that, was not thrilled with this gimmick. But he committed to it.
Yeah.
Like these segments with him, he committed to the character and went with it. So, I mean, credit to him for trying to work with this.
Yeah, I had pretty similar thoughts as the show would go on. We kept going back there. He was all in with this gimmick.
Yeah.
And once we started reviewing everything, I think I had probably just got the timelines mixed up because I thought this was before his big thing in ECW with the NWA title, because that was a very noteworthy thing to do. And he threw down the NWA title, ushered in the era of Extreme, and then became a knockoff genius in the WWF. So I don't think that what he was probably hoping would happen after he, stuck the flag of ECW right into the eye of the NWA I don't I don't think this is where he saw himself a year later.
No, and the timing was odd that like because he had already established himself as the franchise, as the the guy there, and he had done so many important things that were crucial to the growth of ECW. And then
Yeah.
he comes here and you know becomes Dean Douglas, um, which is a big step down from at least creatively what he was doing before. He was probably making better money, but um, I had to chuckle because I remember, this was years ago, and I remember I was watching. I don't know if it was a Raw or SmackDown or pay per view, and they had Matt Stryker, who was doing something very similar to a Dean Douglas type of gimmick, and it made me chuckle because I remember my sister was there, and she was like, "I never had any teachers that looked like that." And I remember thinking that with Dean here, because Dean was a handsome guy. He was always in good
Sure.
shape, and so I just thought of my sister. I never had any teachers that looked like that.
And she's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I did
I
enjoy these segments as they didn't overdo it throughout the show. They did it just enough, I thought, and Dean committed to it, and I
yeah,
thought he did a good job with it for what it was. So I
yeah.
gotta give him props to. It's weird because I keep saying I'm not a fan of Shane Douglas, but a lot of the stuff we've covered with him, it's like he was good here. Like, so
Yeah. Well, I mean,
maybe I like him more than I've. I think he's better than I generally give him credit for. But
yeah. And we've been pretty good about giving credit where it's due
yeah,
and kind of examining our first impressions from way back when we were kids watching this,
yeah,
and have a newfound appreciation for a lot of the guys. But yeah, I have liked Shane Douglas. I thought the triple threat was really cool. Um, Never really cared for Dean Douglas, but yeah, seeing him in his element here in the middle of these promos, he was committed. He was all in, and
and
if
that
it was going to work, he was putting the work in.
right, and that's the thing. Like, because he hated this, but he still went with it instead of like we've seen people who had bad gimmicks who just went through the motions, and he went for it here,
Yeah,
and they were some of the more entertaining segments of the whole show. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. And I noticed that we were in Pennsylvania for King of the Ring as well,
yeah,
and so we're coming back here. And as the show goes on, I do see that we have kind of a heel crowd in attendance.
yeah, and it's interesting because this is in Pittsburgh, and Douglas is from Pittsburgh, so this must have been bittersweet for him, where it's sort of like I made it to the WWF, I'm in my hometown, but I'm in front of a fucking chalkboard, defining words for people. Must have been a little bitter. He wasn't even. Well, it was remote. He wasn't even in the building. That.
Yeah, yeah. He's finally in the WWF. Has a contract. And even back then, in the 94, 95 era, he was established. Like, he wasn't a nobody,
Yeah,
but I didn't think about that. Going back home in this capacity on this show,
but he wasn't
that
performing. He didn't go out and wrestle or even cut a promo in the ring. So,
yeah,
um, so we have our opening match, the 1-2-3 Kid versus Hakushi. And it's ironic because the last show we covered, Hakushi did a run-in but didn't wrestle, and I was talking about how I wished his stay would have been longer, and I think there's a lot of people he could have had terrific matches with. And I mentioned last week that 1-2-3 Kid was one of those people, and ask and ye shall receive.
yep,
And I wasn't disappointed. This was a hell of an opener.
yes, it
I
was.
like this a lot.
Yeah, I didn't
But
even remember that this match happened originally.
I didn't either. But I do think it's ironic that last week, because I didn't remember a lot of Hakushi's run other than him working with Brett. And I was like, oh, I'd love to see him work Owen. I'd love to see him work Kid, Jarrett, Sean. And Kid was one of those guys I specified, and we get it here. So when I saw this was happening, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Hakushi has that badass entrance.
Yep.
With the robe and the Raiden hat, and it was like badass. So he gets the cool entrance, and then they show a clip of Barry Horowitz beating him. So that's a bit of a mixed message. Like, what do I think about this guy? Like he looks like a badass, like, because he had the cool look with the tattoos and cool presentation. But then they show a clip of Barry Horowitz beating him.
Yeah, I'm interested to get some of your thoughts on what was going on with Barry at this time in the business. Vince calls him the White Angel, just kind of a cool name, and then the modern day kamikaze.
Yeah,
which I'm not really sure what they were trying to communicate with that. It sounds cool, but
yeah, I mean, I guess because of his, kind of the style that he had, we didn't see a lot of that in this era of WWF, so it did kind of stand out as far as, the high flying and the dives and flips.
That's true.
So that's kind of what I got from it. One thing that I kind of forgot was how big he is. Like, he's a thickly muscled dude for doing a lot of the stuff that he did. Like, he had some traps on him. He had, like, he's a thickly muscled man. I kind of forgot how big he was.
Yeah, and
he had some
all
mass to him.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. And a lot of his high flying stuff came off really strong. There's a couple spots in here that ended up going. They were pretty impressive and kind of wowed the crowd and the announcers. But
well, this is the perfect opponent for him too, to showcase what he can do. Like this, you couldn't ask for a better guy to work with than Sean Waltman.
Yeah.
If you're Hakushi.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right out of the gate, they had some pretty cool chain wrestling.
Yeah, I was impressed with that. Lots of like cool counters and escapes and stuff. And again, both these guys really stand out on this roster in this era. And like they could do stuff with each other they probably couldn't do with really anyone else. Well, Owen, you plug Owen in there, know, but I don't know if that ever happened. I'd love to see Owen and Hakushi. I wonder if that ever happened.
I'll have to look that up later.
Like maybe on a Raw or something. Or, so yeah, the action's really good here. I popped really hard when Vince says SummerSlam.
Yeah, catch that? I did. Yeah, and he even corrects himself.
He acknowledges it, so that's good. There's like a nice handspring elbow Hakushi does, and then he hits the Bronco Buster. And it's funny because I've heard kids say outright, I stole that move from Hakushi.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I've heard him say that. I don't know if it was on an interview or on his podcast or what, but he credits. He's like, yeah, I stole it from him, but he just does a really obnoxious version of it. Like when Hakushi did it, it's like, okay, all your weight is coming down ass first on the dude's chest, and then he gets up. He does it once, and then like Waltman does it obnoxiously where his balls are in the dude's face and he's riding it. And I hate his version of the Bronco Buster. Hakushi's is fine. It looks effective. And it looks there's some impact as opposed to just embarrassing the person taking it.
Yeah, trying to get ball sweat on your guy's face.
Yeah. Still not as bad as the stink face with Rikichi, but
no, but it's up there. What did you think of the I called it the Hakushi bomb, where it was a play on like a Vader bomb, but much higher.
Yes. Yeah, very smooth. Like Hakushi kind of has like a really nice series of like a bunch of nice kicks. He does a very athletic looking Vader bomb. I mean, it looks prettier than Vader's. It doesn't look like it has as much impact, but it's nicer to watch.
Yeah, like he goes almost completely up on like a handstand and kind of drops himself on there.
He does like the handspring moonsault, a nice flying shoulder block. I did make an observation. I don't know if you caught this, because Hakushi's a heel here. He was getting, probably just because of his athleticism, a nice babyface reaction here, and
That's my next note.
Vince seemed like he was not happy with Hakushi getting the reaction that he got.
Well, and again, that goes back to where they put this event and the heel crowd out there. There were a lot of good pops for his strong style stuff. It was definitely appreciated, but you're right. Hakushi is a heel in here. I didn't pick up on Vince being kind of annoyed with it though.
I didn't make a note of if he said something about it, but I wrote down that he seemed bothered by the reaction. So he must have said something or had a tone of voice that I didn't make a note of. But I don't know if Vince was counting on the fact that his Japaneseness would be enough to make everyone hate him. Because that's the thing you see, and that brings up an interesting point, because you see a lot of this now where people try to be heels, but when you wrestle and do really extraordinary moves that people pop for, it's hard to get heat if people are impressed with what you're doing athletically. You know what I mean?
If you're wowing the crowd,
Yeah.
that I think especially probably back in this time where you don't see a lot of this type of wrestling on WWF TV. And it's not like Hakushi was like an obnoxious heel or anything. I can't remember him ever talking. And so,
right.
It was just kind of that ominous presence that Vince, I think, was trying to have him project whenever he would wrestle. But
yeah, I mean, I think they associated with him with heels, and then again, I think Vince counted on his Japaneseness being enough to get the audience to hate him. But yeah, I mean, the crowd seemed to appreciate at least what he was doing in there in the ring, and why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So he misses a splash from the top rope. Kid does a really nice pop-up drop kick.
Yep.
That just looks super smooth. I always love when he does that because it just looks really nice.
Well, and he had that moonsault over the rope to the outside when Kid was on the floor.
Yeah.
And that was spot on.
Yeah, and it hits a frog splash too.
Yep.
So these guys, I was excited to see this, and this is kind of what I expected it to be, just athletically, and they're really, they didn't play up any kind of storyline here. It's just here's an exciting match to open the show, which is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, because it seems like Hakushi is more involved with Barry Horowitz and the Body Donnas than he is with the Kid.
Yeah. So Kid does a leaping spin kick, and Hakushi kind of catches him and does almost like a one-arm power bomb for the win, which I thought was a nice counter. Everything about this was super smooth that these guys did, which is not surprising. But I didn't notice any timing issues or screw-ups on either part. Just super smooth.
And even their high-flying stuff just seemed right on point. They weren't having to try to adjust to catch the guy or anything. This was, I like what you said. This is exactly what you had expected, and I didn't remember this happened either. And so when when they're bringing these guys out, I'm like, this is going to be really cool.
And it was. I like this a lot, and this is a good opener, a good way to start a show.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, because we've started to notice patterns throughout the years on what kind of match they use to open up some of the pay-per-views. And traditionally, there seemed to be really exciting tag matches. There was that one 6-man tag at SummerSlam some years ago. And so I thought this I think it was great, and it wowed the crowd, got them in there, and I thought it set a good tone for the rest of the event. That would not make it all the way through, but yeah, I thought this was a great opener as well.
Yeah, and I thought like overall, I think this was probably my second favorite match of the night. Like I
Yeah,
enjoyed this quite a bit.
yeah. Then yeah, Hakushi did have that kind of. He caught the kid, and then, like you said, the one-armed power bomb. That was it was cool. Like it wasn't anything super like super extravagant or anything, but it was very effective because it just put a stop to all the momentum of the match.
Yep.
And it gets dropped, and it's like boom, and so the pin almost kind of comes out of nowhere. It was really good.
And I like stuff like that. Like I like when someone just catches someone out of nowhere and beats somebody with something that was like, okay, that wasn't someone's established finisher. Like I think that needs to happen more. Where it's like, okay, sometimes you just caught me. I didn't see it coming. You caught me with something. It was good, and you beat me.
Yeah,
Like everything doesn't have to be a win with someone's finish.
yeah. No, I completely agree. This was a
I
great
don't even
opening
know what he was
match.
using as his finish, Hakushi.
I was just about to ask you if you were aware of that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I didn't see a lot of him in this era. Like I just remember him working with Brett and it being a good match and being like, why wasn't there more of this? But so then we shift gears. We've got Doc Hendricks interviewing Mabel,
Yeah, we
who's
do.
in full-on King Mabel regalia. I noticed the camera work here. It's shot from underneath, looking up at him, um, which was fine. I mean, it kind of enhances just how massive he was, which
Yeah,
he already is, but shooting it like that made him look even bigger and more imposing. So I thought that was a nice call creatively.
yeah.
Uh,
Doc
and I,
seemed a little manic um, in here, like really over the
yeah,
top, even for Doc Hendricks.
yeah, that's a fair criticism.
Yeah,
I kind of chuckled a little when Mabel was talking about Diesel. He called him Big Daddy Fool.
yeah,
That just kind of made me chuckle. Um,
yeah, yeah. No, this was it was cool to kind of see them shooting up at Mabel because he was just massive. Um, but I was just thinking that for better or worse, he was full on in this character, whether it was going to
oh yeah,
work.
he went with it. He wore the crown. He. I still think it's a missed opportunity because I forgot that they gave him a sword at the coronation ceremony. He should have carried that sword with it. Like that should have been a thing. That give Mabel a fucking sword. Like bring it out to ring with him. Have Mo carry it. And Triple H got away with using the sledgehammer. Why can't Mabel have a sword?
I know, and we have Drew McIntyre nowadays. He's
Yeah, yeah. He gets a sword.
yeah, a big
More
one.
swords in wrestling. That's what I. More people should have swords.
I completely agree.
um,
Speaking of Hunter Hearst Helmsley,
yeah. So this is another one. I did not know what was on this card other than the IC title match, and I didn't want to know. I wanted to be surprised. So this was another one. Like when I saw what the next match was, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be fun." We have Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Bob Sparkplug Holly, and I was really excited to see this. I just felt when I saw Hunter come out with that music, and he's got the bow in his hair and like the riding pants and all, like, um, it just brought back a lot of nostalgia, and it just made me happy just to see him like this. And much like we talked about with Dean Douglas and with Mabel, full on commitment to this Hunter Hearst Helmsley New England blue blood gimmick.
yeah, I made a note that on his way to the ring, he was doing his best Regal impression,
Well, I
and I mean
noticed.
that as a big compliment.
No, I do too, and yeah, I got my Regal shirt
That is
here.
awesome.
Yeah, villain.
Is Did that come from Pro Wrestling Tees?
Redbubble. I've had this for probably about a decade, which
That's
is
a
it's
fantastic shirt.
very worn. But it was some like artist came up with this design and put it on Redbubble, and I'm like, I need that to be on my body. Well, I noticed specifically before the match started, and Hunter had one arm behind his back,
Yeah.
like a stance, and I'm like, that is pure Regal. That is pure, uh, you know. But like, it just made me happy to see him with the entrance, and he's got his nose up in the air, and like he's got the ribbon in his hair, and the cane, and the riding jacket, and it's just like, um, full on commitment. And I liked Hunter in this era. Like I remember seeing him and like this dude's really good.
Yeah. And
Like I didn't call the New Age Outlaws like you did. I didn't call The Rock like you did, but I was like, this guy is fucking good. Like
yep.
like I saw it in Hunter for sure.
Yeah. And with the exception of the Ultimate Warrior match at WrestleMania 12, everything that he was, everyone that he was programmed with was pretty entertaining. Like I know him and Mark Marrow um, would, because Sable went with Hunter for a little while
Yeah,
as
she
like
was
his
his
valet or
valet
something.
at first, and then they turned. Yeah, she went with Marrow, and um,
But yeah, everything that I saw that I did um, kind of chuckled at in a very respectful, really cool way. It was just really cool because it's been so long since I've seen a Hunter Hearst Helmsley entrance or match, and he was all into. It was very entertaining.
yeah, this era of Hunter was good, and then of course, him and Bob Holly, both fantastic in-ring performers, both even as young guys, kind of carry themselves like ring generals.
Yeah,
Um, and and I just the match itself, like really just good, like especially with Hunter, like very aggressive heel wrestling, like, and I kind of
yeah,
liked the whole like pompous blue blood thing, but then like he was throwing rounds when the bell rings, like he was very aggressive. Um,
yeah. Like I know earlier on he got backed up into the corner and the ref was trying to separate him, and Hunter just swung right over the ref's head and nailed Holly.
yeah,
And so like, but it was so quick, even though it was like the ref was right there, it was just quick and hit him really hard. And so the ref was like, "Hey, what'd you do?" And it was cool.
and it's weird how good he was so early because he was only, I think, a few years into the business at this point. Um, and for him to just be as good as he was in the ring, this young, is really impressive. Like his
That's true.
psychology was just spot on. Like again, this is the third time we've mentioned it, and this is only the second match. Full on commitment for a lot of these people with these gimmicks.
Yeah.
Um,
And this was a really interesting match with, you know, Bob Sparky Plug, NASCAR Alabama Holly, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Just a blue blood and a blue collar guy in there. It was a good
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, everything about this worked for me. At one point, Holly takes a turnbuckle bump straight out of Bret Hart's playbook. I was like, Bret would have been proud of that bump because it made that loud noise. I think he took it back first, but it still made that because Bret took the chest bump in the
yeah.
turnbuckle, and you heard it like throughout the whole arena.
The
Like it just
ropes were shaking.
it reverberated, and so Holly, it was like, oh, Bret would have been proud of that one.
Well, and there was one spot where Hunter had picked him up, almost like he's going to do a spine buster, and they were in the corner, and then he just drops, and Holly hits
Yeah.
the turnbuckle,
Yep.
and that was just kind of a surprise out of nowhere. I'm like, that was good.
Yeah, almost like a modified version of like a Snake Eyes or something that like Taker and
Yeah,
Nash or just drop, let gravity do the work, just drop you face first. And
yeah,
um, it's funny. I was making a note too. How much of Hunter's offense is based around his knees? He used his knees a lot. Like
yeah. He did.
he would drop the knee on your head. He would do the he'd whip you into the rope, and he'd do like the just
like a high
jump up,
knee.
raise his knee. Like he had a lot of offense involving his knees.
That's true. Yeah, and that does kind of give him another dimension as a as a wrestler too.
Yeah,
I never noticed that before, but you're right.
Nakamura would be proud. Nakamura does a lot of knee-based offense as well. Uh,
There
uh,
was there's that hip toss right over the top rope to the outside.
was
That
that
looked
out of
really
the
good.
abdominal stretch? That was my next note. Was Holly reverses the abdominal stretch?
Yeah, Hunter was doing the classic heel stuff,
Yeah,
cinching in, holding the ropes, and then they kind of spin around, and Holly's going to reverse it, and then just whoop, he goes right over the top rope.
yeah. No, that was nice. I did make a note of that. That was a nice spot.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and then like Holly does his comeback, then Hunter begs off, which
yeah,
I like that. Uh, you didn't see that through most of his career, Hunter begging off, but
no. Well, and he is one of the first guys coming out of this era into a more modern era of wrestling, where he would be more of an anti-hero than a villain
yeah,
or a baby face. But yeah, he was healing it up.
yeah. And then Holly goes to back body drop Hunter, and then Hunter catches him and turns it into a pedigree for the win. And
Well, and before that though, Holly had like a delayed DDT.
yeah,
It's like they locked up. He got him in there, and they kind of paused for a minute, and I was wondering if something was off, and then he just drops him right down. And so it was neat. There were a couple of spots like that, like the one in the on the corner where he picks him up and then just drops him, and then the toss over the rope. It was really sudden and surprising, and it worked great. But it was just a big drastic change in like the flow of the match that made it all the better.
well, that's like what I like about this is just everything. It was just very solid, very believable, aggressive wrestling from both these guys. Like there's no like you didn't see any holes in here. There was nothing really fancy. Um, just kind of really good, aggressive, kind of hard hitting wrestling.
It was a quick match too. It was just over 7 minutes.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed this for like the match itself, and then just seeing both of these guys at this time versus what they'd become. And I
Yeah,
feel like had Bob Holly been, when he becomes hardcore Holly, him and Hunter would have been really good dance partners. But I think at that point Holly was not high enough on the card to really
yeah,
get in there with Hunter for like a big program. But these guys, even here, had really good chemistry.
yeah. Yep, he's got the pedigree, and Holly is another one of those people that, once he became hardcore Holly, I had a whole new appreciation for him. I had really always just kind of tossed him aside as the race car driver, whatever.
Yeah.
And then when he becomes hardcore Holly, you can see this guy is legitimately tough.
Well, even who did Holly work with? Was it Road Dogg that he worked with at King of the Ring? And they had a really good match.
The Road Dog had his dreads out.
I think Holly and Road Dogg had a match at King of the Ring that we both liked as well. Like, so the work was there even here. Like he could
Yeah,
go. It was just the gimmick was the mullet and the little race car driver suit. But he could go.
yeah. No, he could. Yeah, it was Bob Holly and the Roadie in the first round.
Yeah, because that was a good match too.
Yeah,
But yeah, I enjoyed this just for nostalgia purposes. It was really cool to see kind of blue blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley in all his glory.
yeah,
And I know we'll get to see more of that and get to see the evolution of Hunter as we keep going.
yep.
Um,
And then after this, they had a neat little video package
yes, they did.
of what the wrestlers were doing over the weekend.
Yeah, and they had like a tug of war type thing on the water. It was a bunch of wrestlers versus firefighters, and they showed some
Yeah,
footage of that. And um,
That looked really fun.
It did look fun.
Yeah, but I mean, they had Kama, I believe Mabel was on
Bigelow, I
there.
think, was guys
Yeah,
where it's like they're not losing tug of war. Like,
nope.
no disrespect to those firefighters, but you know,
Yep, yep. The wrestlers are going to come out on
the
top.
firefighters are putting them over, like clean.
Yeah, but they also showed like the wrestlers like just walking around and hanging out
Yeah,
with fans. That it's this isn't, I guess, as spectacular as WrestleMania weekend that we see nowadays, but it looked really fun. It looked really cool.
yeah, yeah. It's sort of like at King of the Ring. They showed the thing with like the Special Olympics
Yeah,
and stuff. So it's just kind of cool to see stuff like that in this era. Um,
yeah, because it's interesting the kind of relationship the WWF had with its audience and with wherever they were putting on a show to kind of get out there and be seen,
yeah,
do really really good things like with the Special Olympics, um, and seeing what the Hall of Fame ceremony was like back then,
yeah.
and just to see what it would become now. But yeah, this was a great little video package. It was cool seeing the tug of war. It was fun.
Yeah, and it's weird because I knew what was coming on this show, but so far I'm like, this is a good SummerSlam.
Yeah,
Like as I'm watching this and taking notes, I'm like, I am enjoying SummerSlam '95 so far. Um, that would change, but so far, good show,
yeah,
and it would continue. Next up, we got a tag match: the Jacob and Eli Blue versus the Smoking Guns. This was better than I thought it would be. I just straight up enjoyed this match too. Um,
yeah. This is a couple of times now we've seen the Smoking Guns in a tag match that delivered a lot more than I remember them doing back then.
yeah, and I think since we've been going back and covering these matches, I think the problem with the Smoking Guns was just that they were a team in the wrong era. It's not that they weren't a good team. It was just they didn't have a lot of people to work with. But there's
Yeah,
a fast, aggressive wrestling. There was lots of quick tags. Um,
and these were all bigger than average guys
yeah,
too.
big guy, a lot of beef in the ring.
Yeah, there's a couple times. It's easy to forget that Billy Gunn is a really above average guy for his size and his weight,
Yeah,
and so it was kind of it's kind of surprising. The Jacob and Eli Blue are pretty big monsters, but I'm just seeing Billy Gunn kind of get knocked around a couple times was not something that really seen ever.
and it's weird too because knowing what Billy looks like now, he looks pretty small here. Like he's still a
Yeah,
big muscular dude, but compared to how he looks now, and even Bart was bigger than Billy muscle wise
yeah.
back then. So it's weird that Billy was kind of the smallest guy in this match. um, I did make a note. King was on commentary talking shit about their cowboy gimmick,
Yeah,
and he said it. He knew he was trying to get heat. Like the way he said it, he was. I hate people who wear silly costumes.
yeah,
As he's sitting there with the crown on his head and the little
yeah,
jacket. And,
yeah. That was not lost on me.
yeah, well, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. One thing. So when they did kick off the match, Vince goes into which one's Jacob, which one's Eli, and we've seen this before, and so and Vince even kind of it gives some of the match away. It's like these guys are known for just switching out without tagging. It's like, thank you, Vince. This is a 6-minute match. Thank you for not letting me get caught up in that. Um, and I did notice that some of the big power moves that the Blues were do were getting pretty good pops from the crowd, and they're supposed to be the heels. So, um,
Yeah,
you know, I get a chuckle from that, but I'm sure Vince's blood pressure was probably rising a little bit.
yeah, I know it bothers Vince when people don't react the way he intends them to react to a
Mm.
performer or whatever. And then this is a Pennsylvania crowd, so
Yep.
you got to take that into consideration. But this was, I've never really been too impressed with the Blues Brothers wrestling wise. Obviously, they're big dudes. They have a good look. They're scary looking guys, but these guys had good chemistry. I really liked this, quick little match, but it was I enjoyed this, and Guns hit the Sidewinder for the win.
Yeah, I
Uh,
made a note of that too. That it's cool to see uh, tag team finishing moves.
and it's a nice finish. It
Yeah.
really is. Like again, I like going back whenever I watch the Guns these last couple shows we've covered, they would have been so at home in like the late '80s, early '90s when the tag team scene was off the charts. Like they would have been
Yeah.
so at home there.
Yep. I completely agree.
I did make a note as well. So the Guns hit the Sidewinder for the win, and but the ref counted super fast, but he counted super fast consistently throughout this match. It wasn't just on the finish, but very, very fast count, I noticed. But it was a consistent fast count, so it's not
Well,
egregious
and
to me.
I wonder if that's intentional, so that you can set a high pace for the match, because you said there's a lot of tags in and out, and
Yeah.
so if that kind of puts the crowd like a little bit more on the edge of their seat, maybe, so you know that this is going to be, there's not going to be any chin locks in this one.
Perhaps. I don't know. I didn't even, I should have made note of who the ref was, but I did notice that not just the finish, but the whole, anytime someone went for a cover, it was a very fast count, but it was consistent. So
Yeah,
I didn't make note of who the ref was. But
I
so
didn't either.
far, you know, zero complaints about SummerSlam up to this point in the show.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed everything I've seen so far. Um, they go to a video package where Pettingill's doing
Yeah.
voiceover and explaining how Barry Horowitz beat Skip on two different occasions. Um, and it was
So, how bad do you have to mess up to where they're putting Barry Horowitz over you? That's all I can think of, is that Candido had to have made somebody angry.
maybe Sonny made somebody angry,
That's probably a lot more likely.
and
Um,
Candido was paying for it.
because I remember this back then, and it's, we had Savio, the big underdog from King of the Ring,
Yeah,
and, and Barry Horowitz is a career underdog, and this is, I'm quite certain, his first pay-per-view match, but you, I don't know what the point of this was. It's not like Barry Horowitz is going to become the next 1, 2, 3 kid.
now, do you think? Because I think there's two ways to look at this, and one is what you brought up, that Skip is being punished for something, or whatever, which it very well could be. I don't have any. I've never heard anything one way or another. Or the other could be like maybe they just wanted to give Horowitz something, and Skip was a guy that was beatable that could be made to look foolish because he wasn't that high up on the card. So maybe it was just like, well, let's give something to Horowitz. Like he's earned it. Let's give him a little storyline for a minute.
I think that's probably more likely now that I think about it. But
It could be either. I have again. I've never heard anything one way or another. So I'm just
yeah, I haven't either. But the jaded Mark in me wants to kind of tear this match down, deconstruct why this is happening. um, because like what can Chris Candido do after this?
well. I mean, they never really presented the Body Donnas or Candido as a singles as really a credible threat to
That's
anyone.
true.
You know, um, and I think this was kind of a similar thing to like with Mero and Sable, where it's like you've got a capable performer that comes out with a bombshell, no one cares about the dude wrestling. Like,
That is true.
because this was in an era too where there weren't a lot of women in the WWF. It was pretty much Sunny at this point, kind of had her run of the place.
Yeah. Yep.
And with a young male demographic, people are going to be drawn to Sunny.
Yep. And she was what the most downloaded entertainer or celebrity in one of the very first years of where you could download things.
Yeah, that's her version of like when Jericho talks about like I beat The Rock in Austin in one night, where it's like you're gonna remind people of that all the time, and it's like that's kind of Sunny's thing.
Yep. The crowd did seem really into Barry Horowitz.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like we saw this with the ECW shows we've covered with Mikey. We saw this at King of the Ring with Savio. Like people like an underdog story, you know. And if it's presented well, it works. And that's the thing is, as much as you want to tear this apart on paper, I didn't really have a problem with this.
Oh, no, I didn't either. But this is just very odd. I mean, if they put the Intercontinental title on the Brooklyn Brawler, I would want to know why. And so, yeah, you're probably right. There may not be a whole lot to dig into, but because it was fun and the crowd was into it.
Yeah, it was fun and the people cared about it. It was a good thing to have kind of in the middle of the card to make the people feel good. And, you know, Horowitz beat Skip of the Body Donnas. He didn't beat Razor Ramon. He didn't beat Yokozuna. You know, he beat Skip from the Body Donnas, which, you know, Candido's a fantastic in-ring performer, but he's presented as
Skip was not
a foolish heel tag team and probably the worst era of tag team wrestling of the company. So,
yeah. But yeah, this was 3 times now that Barry is going to go over Skip.
Yeah, Sunny comes out. She's cutting a promo on the way to the ring, talking shit about Barry horrible wits. She looks unbelievable.
My goodness, does she?
And one thing I always liked about Sunny, well, there's a lot, but one of the things is like she looked more natural. Like I don't like the silicone Barbie doll look that would become very popular in a couple years. Like Sunny looked like a real woman. She didn't look plastic. And you know, and she had charisma and could cut a promo. But
yeah, I've heard Cornette talk quite a bit about the difference between Sunny and Sable.
Yeah,
and what it was that they were bringing to the business, their background in it. And he said, you know, you have Sable, the most gorgeous woman you'll ever see in your life, without a doubt. Great woman. You put a mic in front of her. She's not a trained wrestler.
right.
Sunny was. Because she was with Cornette right before she came here, right? She was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah, she got her start, as far as I know, with Smoky Mountain Wrestling because I think Candido went there and brought Sunny with him, and Cornette is not a dumb man, and and Sunny was a fan too, so she actually knew the business and wanted to learn, and she had charisma and could cut a promo.
Yeah.
So, like, Cornette saw money there, and I think Cornette kind of took her under the learning tree, and, you know. But that was, I think, was something with Sunny, you know, because Sunny wasn't a wrestler either, but she understood the business, and she cared about it and liked it, and so I think that's kind of what set her apart from a lot of the other women.
Yeah, she was not just eye candy.
Right. Yeah, because she could get heat, she could cut a promo, like... her timing was good. Like if she had to interfere in a match or something, her timing was always spot on, and she could take a bump here and there if she needed to.
She was very charismatic.
Yeah.
And especially heading into the Attitude Era, where you do have a lot of, I mean, drop dead gorgeous women. Put a microphone in front of. So, they were in Canada last night for Raw, and Trish Stratus came out and had a little bit with Bayley, Io Sky. I don't know if I like that name or not.
I don't like that they just start renaming wrestlers now.
Yeah.
Like Io Shirai and Walter. That's who I want to see wrestle. I want to see Io Shirai and Walter wrestle. Well, perhaps each other. I don't want to see Gunther and Io Sky.
Yeah, well, and then going over to WCW, you had the Ultimate Dragon and Ultimo Dragon that they just kind of, it's like they were just on commentary one day and they just kind of dumped this out on the table and said, yeah, I forget all this. He's the Ultimate Dragon. Let's just move on. And so, but yeah, Trish Stratus, right on the mic. I mean, really good on the mic, really good in-ring performer, and I think that set her apart from a lot of the bra and panties era women, with absolutely, no disrespect to them when I say that, but Sunny
Trish,
was
much like Sunny, wanted to learn. Trish wanted to learn. She didn't want to just come in for a payday and look hot.
Yeah, she put a lot of work into it.
Because because we've seen the kind of look that Vince likes. You can't get more that than Trish Stratus. But then it's like, oh, okay, like she's learning and she's getting better and she cares about her performance. Like, that really did set her apart.
Yeah. But I just thought it was neat that she, they were in Canada, so Edge was on Raw last night. Trish Stratus came in, and I think that Trish and Sunny are cut from the same cloth. They do stand out from the rest of the women or divas division at this time.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Barry gets his first pay-per-view win.
He comes out to fucking Hava Nagila, which just made me chuckle. He dominates Skip in the opening portion of the match, and I like Sunny throws in the towel and pleads with Hebner to stop the match, and he just throws her out. It's like, no, you can't stop the match that way. Like, but that was
and it was
fun stuff.
I know, and the match. I mean, just wrestling 101, a superplex and a pile driver were the highlights, and I'm not being critical of that, but I'm just noticing that there wasn't a whole lot of innovation between them.
Very basic.
But it worked. This was really over with that crowd.
Well, because the thing is, it's a story that people can understand. You got this unlikable guy that has the hot chick that you're jealous that he gets her, and then you got this underdog where it's like, I want to see that guy kick the tiny muscle guy's ass that has the hot chick. Like,
that's right. The most popular guy in school with the hottest girl in school.
Yeah.
And then the guy from the chess team comes up and beats him. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story people can understand easily, get behind. Both these guys kind of knew what they were there for, and it was a basic match, but it was fun. Skip beats on Barry for a while, hits a top rope splash, and then pulls him up before the 3 count.
That never works out.
No, that's almost guaranteeing you're going to lose a match if you pull someone up. Then Barry goes up top. Sunny shakes the ropes and crotches him. Hakushi runs out. Springboards over both guys and then just rolls out. Makes 0 contact with anyone involved in the match, but it's enough to distract Barry to get the small package on Skip for the win.
Then Hakushi just peace out.
I enjoyed this interference a lot. Because he didn't touch anyone. He just dove over 2 human beings and then rolled out. And it was enough to distract Skip. So it was. I thought it was clever and entertaining interference. Made me chuckle.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this match. The only thing, if I'm going to be nitpicky, I thought it could have gone a bit shorter. That's
Yeah.
kind of the only thing I would say. But this match, for what it was, again, up to this point, I'm on board with SummerSlam '95. I'm enjoying the show so far.
Yeah, this is the longest match of the card at this point. It was just over 11 minutes.
So it felt longer. It felt longer.
Yeah. Well, no, I completely agree that I don't think it needed to be 11 minutes long. But
yeah, this was for what this was. You know, kind of get in, get out, tell the story. You know, but and then we cut to the satellite classroom because Dean Douglas is not in the building. It's
yep.
satellite. He's elsewhere. Let's remember that for later on.
Yep.
And so Dean is going to school everyone and define vivify for us. He shows how Hakushi vivified Horowitz in the replay in order to get the victory. He grades the referee and gives him an F. And he grades Barry an S for slacker. And I wrote down, like, this is kind of fun. And again, like, Dean really just kind of making the most out of what little he's given to work with.
Yep.
And if I were grading the first half of SummerSlam, I would give it a much better grade.
Yeah. Give me one moment. You've, at least on my screen, you've frozen up a couple times in the last few minutes.
Oh, okay. You just froze up a second ago as well.
Well, that's no good. Huh. Okay. But we'll keep pushing on.
Yes, we will. We have Todd Pettengill. He interviews Sean about the ladder match. I noticed Sean talks very quickly here throughout the whole promo. He says he made history with Razor in the first ladder match, but he lost. Nothing is going to keep him from winning tonight. And then he says something that really stuck out to me.
He has nothing in his life except the Intercontinental Championship.
One of those things where art is imitating life for sure. Very telling.
I noted that as well.
And I know he has admitted himself that was true, that he did not have anything else in his life at this time.
I did pick up on that.
But I was like, wow, like, you know, because I don't remember this promo. So when I heard him say that, I'm like, ooh, that's that is true.
Yeah. And I did like, well, so Sean is this is his baby face turn here.
Yeah.
But he kept that cockiness with there because it just rolls off him just so well. And I know I take a look at what type of character or product they're making, and you know, again, the anti-hero, I think, you know, which Steve Austin would make a phenomenal anti-hero. But seeing him kind of keep this here, he's kind of blurring those lines to Razor Ramon, you know, the bad guy who's, you know, really appreciated. And so just seeing those little nuances in their character at this time it's really cool. I can just appreciate it a lot more now.
Oh yeah, and he was just like, you know, Razor is oozing machismo, and Sean here is just oozing charisma. And I do think it's interesting when you have someone who Sean was well established, his whole singles run was as a heel. And I think it's interesting when people go from like heel to babyface or vice versa. Like, what do they keep from before? What do they lose? Do they change their promo style? Do they change their in-ring style? And Sean did change his in-ring style a little bit, I think, highlighting certain things a bit more. and being a bit more showboaty and stuff like that. But then like his promos, like I do like that even like babyface Sean did not lose the cockiness of that we've all grown to know and hate out of
Yeah.
the Heartbreak Kid. He kept the cockiness, and I don't think he could get rid of it if he tried. But
No.
even Born Again Sean, when he made his comeback, it would come out from time to time, like because I
Yeah.
think that's just who he is.
Well, yeah, and I think at this point, if you were to try to force this face turn anymore, it wouldn't be natural. Sean would, probably be trying to be someone that he really isn't.
Yeah,
And so, but yeah, just seeing how he kind of reels back some of the the way he does like interviews and things like that. It's just people, again, those anti-heroes that I just keep going on about. You
yeah,
didn't see too many of those in this time, and he's one of the best. And so it's
absolutely.
just cool to see him. Like you said, he was a heel this whole singles run, and so trying to figure out what will work with the crowd while still being the Heartbreak Kid. Um,
Yeah,
he was incredible at it.
absolutely. So up next, we've got Bertha Faye, accompanied by Harvey Whippleman, um, versus Alundra Blaze. My first note: Lawler is going to be brutal here. That was my first note. My second note: what the fuck is Bertha Faye's theme music?
That's a Jim Johnston creation right there, and it works great.
It it suited her very well, and then it's funny because as the match goes on, it was like Vince was actually more brutal to Bertha Faye than Lawler was. I mean, they both were pretty bad, but Vince got in a couple shots too.
Yeah,
Um,
and Vince is the babyface play-by-play, so
yeah, um, yeah, we see like um, an Insiguri from Alundra. She sweeps the leg. Lawler he gets in a good line about like buns of steel versus Bertha Faye as buns of cinnamon,
cinnamon.
uh, which is
Yeah,
probably the line of the night. That was fantastic.
yeah.
Um,
I did notice early on Vince was talking about Alundra Blaze's martial arts skills,
yeah,
and
which I didn't know
she
existed, but
I didn't either, and so that kind of made me think a little bit more on it. Now she did have that uh, reverse spinning trip with her leg,
yeah,
um, but I think Vince just calls anything that is more complicated than a headlock martial arts skills because he uses
yeah,
that to refer to a lot of guys who were, again, even slightly out of the mold of a big burly brawling wrestler.
yeah. The word martial arts was thrown around a lot at inappropriate times. I felt, um, and then I thought that made it mean less when there's people that actually did incorporate a martial arts based style into what they did.
Yeah.
Um, but I enjoyed this match too. I mean, Bertha worked stiff. It was like a good kind of David and Goliath type story. I did note the camera work here would film her legs a lot. They
Yeah.
spent a lot of time shooting her legs, which looked unique.
Well, and I put that Big Bertha is a great big woman.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
you have in the men's division, you have some of the more monsters who need to be big men, and I thought she came off as a great big woman in this match,
And that's why
stylistically.
oh yes, yeah, really good opponents. It's a story that you can see just visually, just looking at the two of them. And I really like when you have like bigger women in wrestling that can go, like a Awesome Kong or a Nia
Nia
Jax.
Jax.
Um, or what's
Dewdrop. I like
Raquel
Dewdrop.
Raquel Gonzalez is big in a different way, but like Raquel
Yeah.
Gonzalez is another example. Um,
Tamina Snuka is
she frightens me.
big.
I'll be honest. Like she intimidates me. Uh, I'm not gonna lie. Uh, but yeah, these two worked well together. They had pretty good chemistry, I thought. Bertha misses a splash off the second, and then Alundra tries to go for like a victory roll type thing. There's a kick out.
Yeah, there were a couple um, pretty like maybe high flying moves that came off really well considering you know, Bertha is big Bertha. Like that victory roll looked great. She was a lot more agile and kind of quick on her feet than I
Yeah.
think I probably would have expected had I not known who she was.
Well, I mean that goes back to, and we've talked about it, and I think we're going to continue to talk about it in this era where it's sort of like there's what people are capable of doing, and then there's how they're presented. And if they're presented a certain way, especially as a young viewer watching this, it's sort of like that's what I will see them as because that's how they're presented. So she
Yeah,
wasn't really presented as someone like an awesome Kong who's just a fucking killer. Like she's presented as like a comedy thing with the Whippleman stuff and her outfit, and it's sort of
yeah,
silly.
like
So
straight out of the trailer park.
yeah, so that's how it's presented, and it's sort of like I think her actual ability does get lost in that because of how she's presented. And credit to her because she works a good match here, but stays true to the character again.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's kind of the theme of the night is people really staying true to their characters.
yeah, and like this was really good. How do you think this compares? So the last big women's championship match was with Bull Nakano, and you have Bull is not as big as Bertha Faye, but she isn't a stick figure either. So, how do you think this match, or maybe just their chemistry, lines up with Nakano and Alundra Blaze?
Well, I mean, I think Alundra had good chemistry with both. I mean, they're both different types of opponents. I mean, with Bull Nakano, she is presented as just a killer, just a stiff, badass, tough woman that can wrestle, that can beat you down,
With a
and
really
so
cool look.
oh, a phenomenal look, yeah. And so I think that that's how that was presented, and that's how the match kind of played out. Whereas here, Bertha is physically bigger, but she's presented more as a comedy act and kind of a parody of just trailer trash and the involvement of Whippleman, who he was funny here.
Yeah,
Whenever he was involved, he did some funny stuff. This I think was less seen as like an athletic contest, as more of just like an entertaining match than how Bull Nakano versus Alundra Blaze was presented.
like more of an attraction match than a
Yeah, this was
main
more
event.
entertainment as opposed to this is an athletic who's the better woman, who can out wrestle who. This was there was a bit more ha ha, and even though the athleticism in this match was good, it was presented more entertainment than athletic
Yeah,
contest. I think, um, like Alundra is chasing around Harvey Whippleman at ringside. That was funny. I got a kick out of that little spot. Um, she does she attempts a crucifix on Bertha.
it's a little sloppy.
Little sloppy, but it got the job done. Well, it didn't. She didn't get the victory, but uh, and then she does a Hurricane Rana, um, and then Bertha hits a sit down power bomb on Alundra Blaze, wins the title. And when I saw this, I'm like, I got to see what Chad thinks about this. That looked like a kick out to me. And I don't know if
Yeah,
what they were going for is, sometimes you see people get the 3 count and they kick out like right after the 3. So it's like, okay, they got me, but they barely got me. I don't know if that was what this was supposed to be. I didn't
I
go
did.
back and replay it, but it did look like she kicked out before 3 to me.
Yeah. Yep, me too. But how they played it off afterwards, like even on commentary, when they have a finish to a match that seems like a whoopsie, sometimes they'll kind of struggle on commentary. But I think there was a pretty noticeable kick out. It was close, but that was it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I should have gone back and rewatched it again just to see what the timing was like. But I was like, that looked like a kick out to me. But the ref sticks with it, that it was a 3 count. I got a kick out of Whippleman when he ran into the ring to celebrate with her, and he just runs and jumps into her arms. He just wraps his arms and legs around her, and
Yeah.
it was just a really funny image.
Yep.
And
I
just
could not
leapt
agree
into
more.
her arms. Again, so far, I've enjoyed everything on this show. It gets so bad so quickly, but up to this point, I'm really enjoying SummerSlam. You get
Yeah.
some really good, solid, athletic wrestling with like Kid and Hakushi. You get a good kind of aggressive match with Hunter and Bob Holly. You get like the entertaining women's match. You get the entertaining, Barry Horowitz thing with Skip. The tag match with the guns. I enjoy everything up to this point. And there's a good variety of different things showcased here. And it goes downhill so quickly. But
Well, and so there was one thing I noticed in the crowd that I don't know, somebody had a big sign that said Bertha Fat.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, just kind of.
That's not nice.
No, it's not nice.
That's the new women's champion you're talking about right there.
That's right. And her and Harvey, I think, were a great pair.
Oh yeah.
And then because you can hear him in her entrance theme too, kind of doing like just talking about her in like the background, and it's just hysterical because he's so tiny. I mean,
Yep.
he's like Bill Alfonso
Yeah.
tiny. Um,
And
but then
both of them
even
were so committed to the gimmick too.
yep.
Like
But
even on the way back after the match, JR interviews them in the aisleway
yes,
as they're walking back, and like she's kind of playing it up like she thinks she's like Pamela Anderson or something, and Harvey's like treating her like that, like she's some bombshell. Um,
yeah. I did notice too that, and I don't know if this played a role in when they decided commentary, but this is the first time I've seen JR noticeably with the Bell's palsy in his face.
yeah, I noticed that as well.
Because I know Vince has always been a little bit particular about. Um, well, that was part of the reason he did let JR go, is that the Bell's palsy had kind of taken away from how he looks on camera.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I've heard JR talk about that, and I tend to believe him.
yeah.
But yeah, I did notice that, and then I kind of half seriously wondered if working for Vince in the WWF is what gave him Bell's palsy. Like just the stress and everything. It's like, I don't know.
I would imagine that would be a factor.
Yeah, like I said,
I've heard stories about what it's like to be in Vince's inner circle.
and to be on commentary
Yep.
too. And so, yeah, but yeah, this was a good little match. It was entertaining. Seeing Bertha with the women's title in the end, she was like, "I am the." I think she said, "I'm the skinniest, most talented. I'm going to put this tiny belt on my slim waist."
Yeah.
I'm like, good for you. Whatever you're given with, just work with it. And she was great. doing that.
And the thing with her, like we were talking about Dean hating the Dean Douglas gimmick, but committing to it. This, I've never heard an interview with her about if she liked this gimmick or not. I can't tell because she was so committed to this. She seems like she's having fun out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if she actually was or not, but she seemed like she was having fun with this.
Yeah. I did hear somebody, I can't even remember who it was, but like with Bertha Faye and I think even Bull Nakano, the changes that were made to their character by Vince when they came into the WWF in this time were not. I mean, but Vince did this with everybody, so I don't think it
Yeah.
was targeted at them. But I do believe that she was not a fan of
Okay.
of what they did. But
That makes sense. I mean, that's not a flattering gimmick, but I mean I give her even more credit then because she looked like she was having fun with this.
yep,
So I guess that speaks to the performer that she is and the commitment she had to getting this over.
yeah. Well, and what women's wrestling was not just in the WWF, but back at this time period in general, it was an attraction match.
Yeah.
So if Vince is like, hey, here's what I need you to do, or leave, I would
Yeah.
imagine that there wasn't much of a choice. But like you said, sticking with the theme of people, given something to work with and making it work, she definitely did that as well.
Yeah, and this entertained me for what it was. I liked it.
Yeah. All right. It was. Which match were you asking about the referee? Was it this one or the one before?
Um. Oh, the one who did the quick count.
Yeah, because Tim White refereed the Bertha Faye match. So I can't remember if he did the one before.
The tag match.
Yeah. Well, I
Where
just looked up the wrong
whoever
information.
yeah, whoever ref the tag match counted super fast, but did so consistently. So
Yeah. And I was trying to look that up on the down low, but I don't know. So yeah, Tim White refereed that match. Yeah, and so up to this point, I think you're right. We've had really entertaining, some of them surprisingly entertaining matches, and
yeah, every match up to this point either met or exceeded my expectations, and I would categorize SummerSlam up to this point as a fun show. I enjoyed everything we've seen thus far, and now we're going to just drop off a fucking cliff.
yeah. Before we do that, I'm going to
With
take a
two
really
Hall of
quick
Famers.
bathroom break. Yeah.
I
Okay.
need to do the same, so.
All right. All right. I meant for the long haul now.
Okay.
What you doing, kitty cat? All right. So we move on from the. Well, it pretty much is the whole first half of the card being very impressive.
Yeah.
I know when we were going through King of the Ring a few months before this, not just with Savio, but there were a lot of other guys who had spots in the tournament. It kind of was their time to shine. Like the Intercontinental
Road Dog.
Yeah. And so the first few matches here kind of keep with that too. Not that they were nobodies, but they weren't guys who were main eventing
Right.
Raw at this time even. And they've been great matches. And now
we got two future Hall of Famers.
I just remember how excited you were about the last casket match that we covered. I mean, you're just falling over yourself. And now, here we are.
Yeah, it's funny because, you had said something to me, and I'm like, and I do this too, where I'll see certain things, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to hear what Chad has to say about this. Like, he's going to love this, or he's going to fucking hate this, or whatever. And,
Yep.
And I feel like you were kind of doing that here with. So we get a video package building up this match. We have the Supreme Fighting Machine Kama versus The Undertaker in the 476th casket match in the past 2 years. They show clips of Kama stealing The Undertaker's urn. He melts it down into the huge-ass chain. He's attacking creatures of the night. Only way to settle this is in a casket match. This gimmick is being done to death, even if they were better matches than they were, which they're not. But even if they were good matches, this stipulation is being done to death. First one, if you recall, with Taker and Yoko, I liked it. I thought it was well done. We did not need that a second time at all. Diminishing returns here, and then this was just as I'm watching this match, I'm like, Bertha Faye has outperformed these two Hall of Famers here tonight. This is just dog shit. And I've got to talk a little shit here because, people have been very outspoken. I know, like Brett specifically, about the Click. It's like Sean just wanted to work with his friends, and Brett has been guilty of that too, working with his friends. I'm sure Taker's friends are phenomenal people to hang out with. I'm sure they're good guys. But his friends aren't as good as Brett's friends or Sean's friends. When Brett works with his friends, you get Owen in a cage match. You get WrestleMania 10. You get SummerSlam 92. When Sean works with his friends, you get ladder matches and good friends, better enemies. This is what you get when Taker works with his friends.
I know the Bone Street crew were very, very legitimate, tough guys, hard workers, but
I'm not questioning any of that out of any of those guys, but Sean's friends are more talented. I'm just going to say that.
Yep.
If I were Brett, I would be more offended by this than Sean and Razor having a second ladder match. But that's me. So we've got Kama accompanied by Ted DiBiase, who I just, we've talked about how great DiBiase is on the mic, as a performer in the ring. These last couple years of him as a manager in the $1 Million Corporation just have not worked for me, brother.
Doesn't work for me, brother. That's right.
It just feels forced. It doesn't feel organic. and none of the stuff is particularly good, I don't think.
It comes off as very stale at this point.
Yeah, like
But,
something to do to fill up time on the card, you know.
and being able to go back and review all this stuff again, it seems like the $1 Million Corporation is just there when you need to put some guys together, but don't want to write a story about it or come up with a
Yeah,
reason. Oh, and just give them some money, turn them heel, and now they can there. And then it's like,
yeah,
oh, this other guy is feuding with this person. Now you're all feuding with the $1 Million Corporation. It just seemed like a really cheap trick where you just put a quarter in, pull the lever, and poof, here's your match.
yeah. It seemed forced, and like DiBiase in the ring, I'll watch it all day. And I think he was one of those unsung heroes of the first boom period of pro wrestling that never gets the credit he deserves. In the ring, I adore DiBiase, love the guy, watch him all day, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Outside of the ring, I just don't care. And this continued in the NWO too. When he was in the NWO, it's like he doesn't need to be there. Like it doesn't fit.
Yep, he stopped having something to do a long time ago,
Yeah,
and
and
that
I feel
is
bad because as an in-ring performer, like I can't say enough good stuff about the guy, and just because he can't work in the ring, on paper he should bring a lot of value as a manager, but he didn't.
no. Well, it seems like to me that they were, you know, having the $1 Million Man in IRS just gimmick wise is a really cool pairing.
Oh yeah, I have no
And
problem with that pairing at all.
yeah, and then when you first kind of see the $1 Million Corporation, you know, it's a legitimate stable,
Yeah,
and there were cool promos, and you were able to take guys who were like having Tatanka turn heel and join there was significant for Tatanka, and he was a really solid mid card babyface.
yeah,
And so, and even the thing with like Bam Bam Bigelow, and then he lost at WrestleMania. Like, there's at least something to kind of grab onto there, to follow and to be invested in and to care about. And it just seems like it's been 2 or 3 years since they've worked on making this any more entertaining or any more coherent, other than, oh, Ted's evil, here's money, I don't know what to do, here's a new gimmick. And you know, it just doesn't seem like there's any effort anymore.
I feel like that because again, DiBiase is a good mouthpiece. He's a good manager. I feel like a lot of the guys, Tatanka didn't seem like a good fit for me. I've said before about Tatanka doesn't work as a heel for me. I thought he
Yeah.
was just a really good baby face, but Kama to me, it just seems mismatched. Where DiBiase, I feel like if the $1 Million Corporation had the feel of, let's say, a Four Horsemen or maybe an Evolution, because like Evolution, like the guys all dressed in nice suits, and they came, the Horsemen, the same thing, they all dress nice. And I feel like if they had picked the right guys to be with DiBiase, and they kind of came across as all of them kind of dressed like a unit, dressed nice, kind of classy, because he's the $1 Million Man, I feel like that could have been huge.
Like more cohesion.
Yeah, like if they felt like a unit as opposed to a bunch of mid card heels with nothing to do that got thrown with DiBiase.
And even with the Supreme Fighting Machine, Kama, really imposing guy, a really cool gimmick, but he was brought in because why? Like, what was he doing? Like, I get you can't bring back Papa Shango at this point, but
Right. They almost
yeah,
did.
they did.
Yeah, he's talked about that before he joined the Nation, the plan was for him to come back as like an updated, darker version of Papa Shango. And he
Oh,
talked about that like Jerry Lawler sketched up like a new look for him with ring gear and a makeup that would be like a really darker updated version of Papa Shango, and I guess he was excited about doing that. And then it's like, you're going to be in the Nation. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
I feel that worked out pretty good for him, but
he didn't
yeah,
really do much in the Nation, but what came out of that was good for him. But I would have
yeah,
liked to have seen a darker, updated Papa Shango, because Papa Shango looked cool as hell
absolutely.
and stuff. And he, that's the thing, is like, he looked cool as Papa Shango. He kind of found his groove with the Godfather character, but he was never known as like, oh, this guy's going to have great matches. Like, he was never known for that, and he
That
stayed
is true.
consistent to that here.
I'll give credit to the idea of him stealing the urn and melting it down to a chain.
That was cool.
Was That was cool. And
And that
then
was the biggest fucking chain. Like, that looked like the chain Hercules used to wear around this ring, as far as the weight of that thing.
yeah,
That was
but
a huge ass chain.
but even then, going back and covering these pay-per-views, he had it one time, and then I believe he wore it to the ring, and then they had the other urn, because the one they melted down was one with the spotlight in it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's like they just kind of forgot about that. And then when they needed to give Taker a match, now we'll bring it back. You can beat up the creatures of the night,
Yeah.
and none of this is a commentary on his in-ring performance or the time and effort he put into his character. But there's just nothing left here for me. It's an overly done match, just like you said. There's not a whole lot to be invested in.
It's weird, because as I was watching it, and I didn't take a ton of notes on the match itself, there was a couple things that I'll talk about that did stand out. But as I was watching this match and taking notes, I found myself just getting angry, because it's like, I'm really tired of covering these Undertaker matches in this era. I'm really getting sick of it. Like, I'm really looking forward to WrestleMania 12 when he works with Diesel, because it's like, oh, good, that's a breath of fresh air. Like, because it's been hard to get through these matches with Taker in this era. It really has.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not blaming the performer, but it's just, they are what they are. But I'm just tired of reviewing them. They're hard to get through.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I remember the first one with Yoko was way better than I had remembered.
oh yeah,
And that was a breath of fresh air for me too, and how I remember and look back on these things. But now it's just, what are you doing?
well, that's the thing. That's not something you want to see a second time. You got away with it the first time. It was good. It was better than it probably should have been. It's not Shawn and Razor in the ladder match where it's like, this is something we need to see a second time. It's a casket match with Yokozuna and Undertaker. Like, and then to go back to the well with another casket match with someone who I think is not as good of an in-ring performer as Yokozuna, like, with less of a story. Oh, this is
I,
just.
I will say this, that the Godfather looked awesome no matter
Oh,
what
yeah.
gimmick he had. Like
Oh,
he
yeah.
like even just naturally he has that look. Like if I were to walk in and see him smoking a cigar, and it's like, I own a strip club. It's like, yes, you do. I can totally get on board with that. But
And I will behave myself if I enter it, because I do not want to cross that man.
that's right. Yeah.
No,
But
big dude. He was always in awesome shape. He had all the tats. Like,
yeah,
I mean, the comma hairstyle wasn't the most flattering look, but I mean,
it was unique.
yeah, it was unique, and he looked the part. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't knock the guy's appearance.
Yeah. But this is when I started texting you last night, and it's like, this is like, I can't do this anymore. And then the match after this, I'm like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Not
So, I mean, a couple things that stand out about this match. Like I said, I didn't take extensive notes on the match itself because I can only take so much. But so Undertaker does kind of like a skin the cat type of a thing. He's on the ring apron where the casket is, and he tries to do like a skin the cat type of thing to Kama, who's in the ring. And he gets it, I guess. It's not it's ugly as hell, but it gets the job done, and kind of tries to do like a head scissor pullover, pulling Kama from inside the ring into the casket on the outside. Um, I give him credit for attempting to do that move.
Yeah.
Um,
I did have some notes earlier on with Paul and DiBiase on the outside.
I
That
think that's my next note here. Where Paul just because at one point I have DiBiase attacks Taker on the outside, and Paul loses his fucking shit, which I wrote in all capital letters, trying to
Yep.
get at DiBiase. Was that what you were talking about?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Had to be pulled away by the referee.
Kudos to Paul, man.
Yeah.
He wanted to get at DiBiase. Like, I was like, oh my god, he's gonna murder Ted if he gets his hands on him. Like,
and for whatever the crowd was into here, there's a rest in peace chant that was blowing the roof off of this place. I mean,
yeah,
Taker was over.
he was, and yeah, I'm not debating his overness.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I probably would have looked at this in '95. I would have been what, 13? So 13-year-old me probably would have loved this, just because Taker was so over with me that I would have just been happy to see him no matter what he was doing. 40-year-old me, not so much.
Yeah.
This was offensive to me. My next note after this, like, I'm so fucking done with Taker in this era. This is hard to get through. Like, this is what I wrote down.
The next thing that stood out to me was when Kama forgot it was a casket match and tried to pin the Undertaker. Even Lawler popped off saying it's a casket match, dummy.
Yeah, and I'll give him a pass on that because how many casket matches has Kama had? Like, it's probably just your instinct that you do a big move, you go for a cover.
It is.
I think we even covered that, like, in the Brett Backlund submission match. I think one of them goes for a cover, and I think we kind of gave him a pass because it's like, all right, like, you're working 300 days a year. This is probably his first casket match. Like, instincts kick in, you know.
No, yeah, and you're absolutely right. That is just their natural instinct. But right afterwards, Kama puts them in a headlock and they just lay down. Now they're in a rest hold. And they're there for a while.
Yeah.
And then when the Taker gets up, it's a headlock takedown just laying there. And I'm like, holy shit, he really did forget this is a casket match. And I think I think they're trying to put this thing back together. And then he's like putting his feet up on the rope, and the referee can't break it. But that that stuck out like a sore thumb to me.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the pinfall attempt. That, considering how much of this match was offensive to me, that one didn't bother me. They do a spot. They both kind of a double clothesline over the top rope, and both guys go into the casket, and the lid shuts with both of them in there.
So I wanted to ask you, would that make this a double draw?
The famous double draw. I thought I had that thought cross my mind, and I was like, oh, good, just end it here. Like, I know that they don't end it on a double draw, but I was like, the thought did cross my mind about the words double draw popped into my head for sure.
Good.
And then so they have them, the lid comes up and they're trying to escape the casket, and they have a camera in the casket looking up. And again, credit to people's commitment to their gimmicks on this show, and credit to the camera work. I've put both of those things over a couple times on this show. The shot in the casket shooting up from inside the casket was a really nice shot.
Yeah.
So the camera work here, I cannot fault that. I thought that was cool. And then so Kama crawls out first, and then Taker grabs him, drags him back into the casket, and crawls out. And my next note is, words cannot describe how disappointed I am when Kama crawled back out of the casket and the match continued. I was like, Kama crawls out, Taker pulls him back in, Taker comes out, I'm like, please just shut the lid. Please just shut the lid and let this be over now. But Kama crawls out and the match continued, and the level of disappointment that I felt.
There was one other thing that I noted. And so I also was wondering if this is still the double-decker casket or if this is a different one, and I can't remember.
It looks like the same one. It looks like the same casket because it had the Undertaker, the picture of the Undertaker with "Rest in Peace" written on top. Which, man, if you're wrestling the Undertaker in a casket match, like, how much is the deck stacked against you? Like, the dude's picture is on the gimmick named for him, for his character. Where it's like, I'm probably not gonna win this one. I don't know. Like, when the dude's picture is on the casket, I don't think my chances are good here going over.
Yeah, that's like having a super kick match with Shawn where the winner wins by super kick.
Yeah.
But when they were both in there, that's what I thought. I'm like, this has to be, if both these guys can fit in there, this has to be the double wide, double deep casket.
It was. Still. I'm pretty sure it was the same one that was used in the Yoko matches. Because it looked like the same, it was super deep, super wide, and it had the Undertaker little cartoon picture with the "Rest in Peace" painted on the top of it, on the lid.
The only other thing that I noted, and at first I just thought it was just more silliness, I'm like, Kama just gave the Undertaker shake, rattle, and roll. But I believe that was his finisher when he was the Soul Taker, when he first started wrestling.
I believe you may be right about that. And he did it well. And it's funny, he did it exactly like Honky.
Yeah, well, and
lots
that's
of people do neck breakers, but that was a shake, rattle, and roll. Like,
it sure was.
And it was well done.
Yeah, well, it's just, I'm like, is he really doing the Honky Tonk Man's finish with all of this stupidness going on right now? Are we getting the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time? But then I remember when he was the Soul Taker, I don't think it was called shake, rattle, and roll, but so that was interesting, at least for me.
See, now I'm just thinking, like, Honky's involvement in this match would make it improve tenfold. I would much rather see, like, a Honky Undertaker casket match. That would be much better than this. It totally would.
Yep. I really can't agree more right now.
Yeah, my next couple notes are just talking shit, because this match, I really was so deflated when Kama crawled out of the casket and the match continued. It really, at that point, I just started talking shit, where it was like, I wrote, this makes me long for Mabel's bear hug against Savio. I wrote that I feel like Jack Tunney auditing the Beverly Brothers would be more captivating than this match. So that's where I was at mentally when, during this
Jack Tunney. Man, this had to
auditing the Beverly Brothers. Yeah.
So I assume this is the match you were talking about when you said, I found something I hate more than the Bushwhackers and the Beverly Brothers?
Yeah, this match is not, out of all the shows we've covered, if we're breaking it down match by match, this is my least favorite match that we have covered. This even beats the Beverly Brothers Bushwhackers Iron Man match that we covered before.
Yeah. The only other thing that I had was I wrote, this is Dumb and Dumber. Like, not the movie, it's just really bad. But
yeah, Dumb and Dumber was more entertaining than this.
It really was. But the crowd pop when Taker won was, man, they again, he was over. This match was over, I guess, at the time. But and so that's the thing. You know, I'm looking back, and again, I think that jaded marketing me wants to tear this apart. It worked, but I don't think it worked for any good reason. I think that Undertaker was over, and him having a casket was over. But if you did put anyone else in there, it wouldn't have been special at all. I don't know.
Yeah, I think because Taker had earned the audience's goodwill, they were just excited to see Taker as an attraction. But this did not tick any of the boxes for me. The story didn't do anything for me, what little there was. The action in the ring didn't do anything for me, what little there was. Um, the only thing I really enjoyed about this match, besides it ending, was how much Paul wanted to get at DiBiase. I popped for that because I was like, Jesus Christ, he really wants to get at him. Like, they're going to need to call in a SWAT team to keep this guy off DiBiase. So, yeah, Taker hits a choke slam and a tombstone, rolls him into the casket. And then I wrote down, and I was wrong. I wrote my last note about this match was I hated this so much, and this probably won't be the worst match of the night. Because I thought that the main event would be worse than this, which I did not think it was. I thought this was by far the worst match of the night.
Yep.
But at this point, I thought that Mabel versus Diesel would be worse than this.
No, I don't think I have as much of a hatred for this as you do, but I not only agree with you, but you are factually correct that this is the worst match on the card. And then it's not like we're going to lead into something a whole lot better either.
Not a whole better, but not a whole lot better.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Taker wins.
Yeah, Taker wins. We have Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem up next. In this, I was intrigued about. I was actually looking forward to this because I had seen it before, but not in a very, very long time. And I was actually intrigued because, as bad as the Isaac Yankem gimmick was, Glenn Jacobs is a more than capable performer, and Bret knows how to get the most out of people. So I was 40-year-old me was like, I want to see. I think this is going to be better than I remember it being. And I was actually looking forward to this. So we've got a video package playing up the storyline here. Lawler comes into the ring. He's introducing Yankem, who comes out with the dental drill theme music. I never know, because I haven't seen Isaac Yankem in so long, how much he looks like Dr. D. Dave Schultz.
Yeah, that hair.
With the hair and the little beard. Like, he looks a lot like Dave Schultz here.
I never thought about that, but you are absolutely correct.
And then I popped for, and I hope you noticed this, I figured you probably would. Someone had a sign in the crowd that was white, and they cut the sign out so it was shaped like a tooth. And the sign read, Dr. Bret says 1 sharpshooter a day keeps Isaac Yankem away.
I did see that.
Bravo, whatever kid came up with that, put time into making that, and then brought it to the show and got it on camera. Kudos to that child.
Yeah.
I popped for that. So then we have a Pettengill backstage with Bret. And this, I thought this was a fantastic Bret promo where he had so little to work with. But like we've talked about, like Bret has like that low-key sense of humor where it's like stuff isn't like funny in the way that like DX would make something funny, or like it was more low-key humor. Just the fact that Bret, he said these words, I don't care if you're a dentist, which I'm like, you make the excellence of execution say, I don't care if you're a dentist. But then, but then he's talking shit to Lawler. And he was like, I don't care if you're a dentist. You can send your chiropractor next. I don't like. I'm like, that's such a good, like, low key, funny Brett kind of like that's so in line with his sense of humor. Like, I don't care if you send your chiropractor. Like, I just really
with a
enjoyed.
straight face.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed that he got that over.
Yeah, I appreciated that. I did see that sign. That sign was great.
So,
Brett
out of
doesn't wear a
curiosity,
jacket to the ring.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
Huh. I did
Sorry,
not notice
go ahead.
that. Well, I was going to say, because I think I've gotten an idea of what you thought about this match. But going into this match, were you looking at it the same way I did, where it's like, I'm kind of curious to see this, because it's Bret Hart versus Glenn Jacobs. Were you curious the way I was, where it's like, I think Bret could probably get something good out of him, and even though the gimmick was bad, he's a good performer.
Yeah, well, and it would take him a little while before he landed good with Kane.
Right.
I didn't think this was gonna be like a bad match where it's gonna, as Brett would say, stink out the joint or anything.
Yeah.
But I've gotten used to, Brett's taking one for the team here. And so taking a look at, who they have in their world title picture. You have Diesel here, him and Brett, they're kind of flirting with that with the match they had where it was restarted 3 times.
Yeah.
And I know that they're going to go into that at Survivor Series. And so what I was mostly thinking is, what do they have Brett specifically doing now? The thing with Backlund, the thing with Lawler, the thing with Isaac Yankem, and what a team player Brett was at this time.
Yeah, I thought about that too, because it's like, Diesel was over. They went with him as champ. And then consequently, it's almost like Brett gets pushed down the card for a year.
Yeah, because you
until
can't
he
put
beats
those
him
guys
to get him back, Right, you wanted to keep them away from each other, and so consequently, because it's sort of like, all right, we're going to go with Nash. Brett got moved down the card and is out of the title picture, and has to feud with Lawler. He has to feud with dentists. He'll take on a chiropractor. He doesn't give a fuck.
That's right. That should be a T-shirt.
So yeah, it is interesting that Brett kind of did get pushed down for like a year, basically, while it's like, all right, we're going to try the Diesel thing. We're going to go with him. We really want to get Mabel over. We're building Shawn. So Brett did kind of take a back seat in this era.
Yeah, and that's just how things were. I think that's how things always were in the business. So I don't look at that. Brett had his time, but you need to make other guys too. Right. And so I have been, like I said, just kind of intrigued as to what he was doing while Shawn was coming up and Diesel was, world champion. I think, and Bob Backlund, wow, I was really just so impressed with his dedication to that character as well.
It's a running theme of this era.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
And put a carrot in it. Put a carrot in the chicken salad so you get your beta carotene.
Well done. And so and Brett and Backlund, their submission match was not great, but yeah,
I match they had with I liked a lot Brett and Backlund.
Yeah,
and the second one, not so much.
No,
the one with like Owen on the outside with the throwing in the towel, that I thought was a very good match.
Yeah, the one with Piper where Piper tries to steal the show.
Yeah.
and is yeah, not a fan of that. But I
I'm
didn't
checking the
think,
laces on my boots. Do you give up? Do
yeah,
you give up? I'm just.
we're at Wendy's, Piper. What are you doing?
What do you say, man?
So
I'm
yeah,
tucking my son in. What do you say, man? Like Piper just shows up. What do you say, man?
that would be like a cool cutaway on Family Guy or something.
That would be.
But
Uh,
but yeah, I didn't think this was going to be a bad match. I didn't think it was going to be a great match either. I know Glenn Jacobs, as you said, is a well above average performer, even for a big guy. I don't think he had really found that sweet spot in his career yet.
well, one thing too is because I don't have this answer, but I'm pretty sure like he was pretty green here. I don't think he had been in the business that long.
Yeah,
So for someone like him to be put in this situation where you've got Lawler in your corner and you're wrestling a former world champion in a
yeah,
showcased match of a major pay-per-view, like this is a big deal. And I think because I think he was pretty green here.
yeah.
So
I
kind of the
didn't
pressure
think
was
of,
kind of on for him to perform. And I thought, like horrible gimmick aside, the action here is pretty decent.
yeah, yeah. I didn't really think about that, but and maybe getting to work with those two guys in this program probably helped them uh, work through all the kinks of figuring out his style and everything. You're going to learn everything you need to know from them.
One spot in here, um, and I've seen clips of it before because I haven't watched this match in
Yeah.
probably over 20 years at least.
Yeah, it was probably still the 90s the last time I watched this.
Yeah, but there was a thing where Yankum had Brett kind of almost like in a cravat thing, and then he like lifted him up. It was almost like a hanging neck breaker thing. That looked brutal. Like that looked like you could break your neck doing that to a dude. Like it looked like
Yeah.
like Brett could have gotten seriously hurt. Like it looked dangerous.
Well, and there was one point. Oh, yeah. So Brett doesn't wear a jacket to the ring. He comes out with just his glasses. Um, and so that
I'm
stuck out to
ashamed I
me.
didn't pick up on that.
There was one time where Brett yelled at the ref, and I can't even remember what for. And then the camera zoomed in, and he was kind of smiling and smirking afterwards. And I don't think they were meant to pick that up.
I didn't catch that either. I
Yeah,
think maybe because I was recovering from the previous match that maybe I didn't catch as much as I should have here.
yeah. Brett had kind of yelled at the ref and turned away, and he had. I mean, it was a noticeable smirk. It wasn't like he was
Oh,
trying to fight it back. I didn't even write down what it was for. I just remember that was
oh,
like
okay.
a fun little Easter egg inside the match. I did also notice there was a woman in the crowd who everybody had cameras back then, but she had a camcorder in her hand. Um, and so I that's how into this match I was.
I didn't catch any of those things, so
Yeah,
that's why it's good that we talk about this stuff because we catch different things.
that's right. There were when Isaac Yankem jumped off the top rope.
The
I,
leg drop,
yeah,
yeah,
um,
that was nice.
yeah, and just him being as big as he is, that's a high spot in the match.
Well, I know
So
even like his cane, I always really liked when he would do the top rope flying clothesline, like the way he would like leap. He would get some hang time for a dude his size. Like you know, he was an athletic dude.
yes,
But yeah, the leg drop was nice. I really loved Brett did a suicide dive to yank him on the outside that was like one of the best suicide dives I've ever seen. He got a ton of momentum, and it just looked brutal. Like that's one of those moves you see in wrestling now that is so overutilized. This one
Yeah.
looked really good. This was like when I think of good suicide dives, I think of Benoit immediately. He always had really good suicide dives, and Brett always did too. But this one was really good. And then like he lands on top of Yankum, and just the punches looked like he was going for the knockout. Like they looked like really stiff, good punches.
Yeah. I kind of forgot how often Brett used the suicide dive back then. Like he has
Yeah,
his, little toolbox of, patented moves for him, but that was one of them too. And I did notice this one. I think he probably figured, Kane's so big,
yeah, he
you
can
know,
take it.
yeah, and even if he does, kind of, I don't want to say like overdo it, but yeah, it really didn't matter how hard he flew, and it looks like he wasn't restraining himself at all.
He
You
had
know,
momentum for sure,
yeah,
but it was
Kane, like
just
you,
a really, really nice suicide dive. And then the punches afterwards,
yeah,
it looked like he was trying to knock him out, like legit. Like his punches looked so good. So we get kind of like some vintage Brett offense, kind of the series of moves he likes to do to build to the sharpshooter. And one thing I noticed too is so Brett goes to do the backbreaker, which is one of the moves he likes to do to build to the sharpshooter. And Yankum's a big guy, but I noticed the way like he was holding him up, like it looked like he was really carrying him for that backbreaker. Like it looked like he doesn't just get him up and then drop him right away. Like he keeps him up there for a minute, and it looked almost like if you were like building a house and you were carrying like a beam, like if one person was just carrying a giant long ass beam to run the length of the house. That's what it looked like of him holding Yankum up before he dropped him.
I didn't pick up on that.
Because he's so damn tall. Like it just looked like
Yeah,
he's carrying a beam for a house.
well, and I'm trying to think what Kane could do to kind of help that. Maybe, like you said, he was pretty green, so
No, it's
maybe
not that
Brett
he
had to
didn't.
carry the weight.
It wasn't like I didn't mean that to say that like Yankum didn't help him getting him up. It just meant that like Brett seemed like he held him there for a second or two before he would drop him, like longer than he normally would. So it was on like it was something Brett chose to do, but then just because of how big he is, it just reminded me of him carrying him a beam. I wasn't trying to imply that Yankum didn't
Yeah.
work
Okay.
with Brett on that move. It was just that Brett had him up and held him there for longer than he normally would before he dropped him down. Um, I didn't want to imply that Isaac
Well,
Yankum
and
did something wrong.
yeah. Well, and he is like a beam in a in a
Yeah,
house too. I I know, like when he debuted as Kane, I remember very vividly. Like I would have believed that the door to the cage wasn't gimmicked. With how huge he was,
yeah.
and
His
here,
arms when he showed up as Kane, that dude's arms were ridiculous how
yeah,
big he was. That's the thing, like watching the evolution of Glenn Jacobs, or like he just keeps getting bigger each time. Like he was a big muscular guy here. He was bigger as the fake Diesel, and then as Kane, like his arms were like someone's waist. It was just, and when he ripped the door off the hinges, like it looked so believable. And I remember he threw the ref into the cage, and it looked like he was like trying to throw like throw a shot put or something. Like that was such a cool debut. So
yep.
well done.
And here is it's not like he was out of shape or anything, but even just looking at them physically, it would be pretty easy for me to not make the connection that they're the same guy. It probably has a lot to do with the look. Um,
Yeah.
but he would really, I mean, for a guy, he was a proportionately massive bodybuilder. which is hard when you're, creeping up on 7 feet tall. To keep everything as proportionate as
Right.
as he
Yeah.
would come. And then kind of seeing him here, it was like, he came a long way.
He did. Yeah. So Brett he hooks the sharpshooter, but it's near the ropes, and Lawler helps yank him, grabs the ropes, and just to be nitpicky, you've got a dude that's damn near 7 feet tall, and he's right near the ropes. He didn't need Lawler's help pushing the rope a half an inch closer to him when he's got that kind of reach. Just
Yeah.
being nitpicky, but he would have gotten to the ropes on his own. He didn't need Lawler's help. But
Yeah. That's something that you have to take into account whenever you're wrestling giants, which Brett did quite a bit.
yeah,
You got to play in your spots a little more precise than that.
yeah. So then the two of them fight on the outside. Brett wraps Yankum's legs around the ring post, ties him up with the cables. Um, I always think of him doing that spot with Diesel, but he did it here as well.
Yeah, I had forgotten that he did that in this match.
And Brett does not mess around when he does those cables. I've heard Nash say that when Brett did that to him, it was like I really couldn't get out. It was really hard. Like he tied him, he wrapped him around a bunch and really tied it. Like, um, so
Yeah, it's a DQ finish.
well, another thing I got to put over too, like so, Brett beats on Lawler and Yankum does a double axe handle to Brett from the top rope to the floor, which
Yeah.
again, talking about the athleticism of a guy his size, like I always think of Savage doing that move, and it's one thing for Savage to do it, but
Yeah,
for a dude that big to do that from the top rope to the floor, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's got to be killer on his knees.
Yeah,
Landing with all that weight.
yeah, I wouldn't want to do it. So then, yeah, we get Yankum and Lawler double teaming Brett. Brett gets his head caught in the ropes in like that Mick Foley spot. Thankfully, he left with both of his ears intact.
Yeah.
But
That
Brett
looked.
sells that. He sells it really well, and I'd imagine because I've heard those ropes are super tight. I'd imagine that's got to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that looked brutal, and he sold it as such.
Yeah, so we got a DQ. Um, Brett's selling his neck, and then he gets helped up and gets a big ovation here for his troubles.
Yeah.
This was okay, is how I would describe this match.
Yeah.
And just from
Yeah.
a historic, where will they go from here point of view, it's cool to see Glenn Jacobs at this point in his career getting to mix it up with the Hitman.
Yeah. I think Brett's had better matches with big men than
Oh yeah,
this one. Um,
and I think a lot of that is just there wasn't a good storyline going into this, and I think it's just Isaac. He was pretty green here. It's not like he
Yeah.
had been in the business for 10 years and then he came in, like I think he was pretty green here. So,
Yeah, it was neat to, like you said, from a historical point of view, to kind of see Glenn Jacobs' first jump into the WWF.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't like with those couple spots with him going off the top rope. I thought were visually very impressive to watch.
yeah. I mean, he did some athletic things for a big guy. Kind of got to show off his athleticism, and then Brett carried the match, as of course he's going to. Um, it was fine.
Brett's had a lot of his matches during his time down here in the mid card, uh, and by interference or a DQ.
Yeah,
And I was thinking that that's probably the safest way to protect each guy's character going forward.
I would think so, yeah.
Because if Brett's just going to wipe the floor with everybody, you're going to run out of people really quick. So,
Right.
now there has to be something to, stop Brett from doing that.
Right. And I'd imagine it's got to be tricky to have someone like a Bret Hart, who is a former multiple-time world champion, and then it's sort of like, no, it's Diesel's turn, but you're still Bret Hart. We need to do something with you. That's got to be tricky to find that balance of trying to keep everyone happy, give the crowd what they want. But it's like, it's not your time right now. We got to give him his turn at the top now. So
yeah,
got to keep you out of the title picture for a bit.
Yep. And that is just what they did. That was not unique to Brett.
Right.
Because then you have to, Brett and Diesel are going to have another program coming up. So you can't just hand that out back to back, with pay-per-view to pay-per-view. So
I'm really excited to cover that Survivor Series match, because I haven't seen that in forever, and I remember that being a phenomenal match. I remember that being Kevin Nash's best match of his entire career. And we've seen those two cross paths before and talked about how they have really fantastic chemistry. So that's one of the matches I'm looking forward to covering soon.
Yep, me as well.
So then we have Doc Hendricks interviews Razor. He cuts a cool little promo. But I made a note that it was almost too Razor Ramon-ish.
What do you mean?
Like, because there's Scott Hall, and he has kind of the way that he gives promos, the way he talks, and it's cool and whatever. And then, Razor Ramon, it's sort of like, okay, you got to kind of... It's a bit different than a Scott Hall promo, the whole Razor Ramon thing. This was almost just too Razor Ramon, and I didn't write down specifically why, but it seemed a bit almost too in character.
A little over the top.
A little over the top, yeah. A little, yeah. But it was still cool because it was Razor, and
yeah.
So then we
I just remember him saying, he's like, that history has a way of repeating itself.
His delivery was just so cool. Like, he had that like deep voice. It was just sort of kind of like, you get like with Kevin too, where it's just sort of like kind of too cool for school. Like, I'm not phased, Chico. Like, it's, like just not yelling, not screaming, just laid back, cool.
Yeah.
So then we have a match that I have not seen in a long time, but I remembered very fondly. I was looking forward to this.
Yeah.
The much anticipated rematch, Shawn and Razor, ladder match number 2 for the IC title.
There were a couple things kind of circling this match too. So Sid is going to get a crack at the winner for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yep.
And I've heard through dirt sheets that it was originally supposed to be Shawn and Sid. And then once they put the card together, they're like, I think we need to do something a little bit more spectacular. And that sounds almost too good to be true. But so we get their rematch from Mania 10.
And it's not right away, too. Like, it's been, what, a year and a half?
Yeah.
Or so since the first one. So it's not like they went back to the well immediately. So I think that's kind of cool that they waited a while. And I do remember hearing what you said about this was kind of a last-minute addition to kind of beef up the in-ring quality of this show.
Yeah, and it's easy to look back and kind of pull that out, but I don't know if that was really the case or not. But
from what I've heard, neither of these guys were that thrilled to have another ladder match, because I think they were like, we did it, it worked, it'll stand the test of time. Like, we don't need to do it.
Like a casket match,
right? But both these guys came out to a nice babyface reaction. Um, Sean, he had some cool ring gear in this era. He did here because he's had some big hits and some big misses as far as his ring gear. The last couple shows we've covered have been hits as far as his appearance.
What do you think about the baby blue color in his attire tonight?
I liked like the blue and the black. I liked it. I thought it worked for him.
Yeah,
Like
there's
certain
that.
color schemes worked for him, and I think that was one of them. And I liked when he would start incorporating like silver and gold into that and stuff. Of course, the black, red, and white he used a lot. He looked good in that. Um,
Yeah, the baby blue stuck out. I was just wondering if the white strapped IC belt would have gone better. But, yeah, this isn't even nitpicking. I'm just being silly now. But Sean has really cool outfits, and like his color schemes are always, very well thought out. And I think some of them were probably built around how he'd look with the championship title in there.
Sean seems like a guy that would have that type of attention to detail.
Yeah, and like I don't think it looked bad at all. It was kind of
I
hard
liked
to
it.
notice it, but yeah,
Yeah. So then on his entrance, I like that, there's the big ladder in the entranceway, and Sean climbs on it and poses on the way to the ring. I like that. And then we have Doc Hendricks joins Vince on commentary since Lawler left with Yankum.
yeah.
And then so this, and I knew we would talk about this, uh, the hanging of the belt. So they bring the thing down, and the ref puts it up there, and puts it up there not to Sean's liking.
Yeah,
And so Sean uh, yells to bring it back down, and you can see it clear as day. You know, he's yelling at the ref. He's telling whoever to bring the cable back down, and then he adjusts it, um, snaps it at the ref.
yeah. I think the ref went to go up to the belt to adjust it, and Sean uh, stopped him from doing that.
Yeah, like fuck you, like I'll do it. And then he like angrily, he's like, put it back, like motions to, he was pissed before the bell even rings.
Yep.
Um,
I noticed this was the first of two temper tantrums
yep,
he
that
has in this
Sean
match.
became known for.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I wanted to ask you, because we've seen in other ladder matches where a title is involved. Because sometimes they'll have like a Money in the Bank thing or whatever. But when the title goes up, despite the hiccup here, I like it to see the champion come out with the belt, maybe for the last time, as opposed to it already being above the ring when they make their entrances. I like seeing
Absolutely.
them come out, and I like the pageantry of watching the thing come down and then the belt get clipped up, and then so despite how it played out here, I do like it better this way as
Yes.
opposed to the belt already being up there.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think that it worked pretty well. Like even Sean's little flare up with the ref and everything. Like you said, seeing him come out with the belt, possibly for the last time, but watching it get hoisted up in the air sets a really, really good tone for the
and
type of
then
match you're going to have with it.
right, and yeah, I like to see that the champion who might lose it come out with it one last time, and then even like when they raised it back up the second time, and you see Sean and Razor looking at it being raised, and it just makes it seem more important,
Yeah,
you know. And I'm sure that was by design on both those guys' parts to kind of sell, like, look how high it's going up there, and
yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, that's saying, hey, this is not just a regular match. This is a special match. Um, and there is no pinfalls, no submissions, and I like how they kind of came to the center of the ring and they were
yeah,
kind of face to face, but both looking up. I
Yeah,
thought that was just a perfect setup for the
it
match.
really set the stage for like this is special. This is, and again, because it was a year and a half since the last one, it's like, oh wow, like we never thought we'd see this again, and here it is. Like, um, so this had a big time feel to this match for sure. It would not be the last problem Sean had with the championship belt of the evening.
Uh, yeah. So um, this was also where they were told that they cannot use the ladder as a weapon.
Yes, and that's one of those things. And I tried to look something up about it, and I couldn't find anything. I don't know if you know the answer. Who was saying they couldn't use it as a weapon and why? Because it's like I get if it would be like if they had this match on a Monday Night Raw and USA Network had a problem with it, but this is pay per view, so I'm wondering who did that come from that you can't use the ladder as a weapon? Do you know that
That's
answer?
I
Because
do
I
not.
tried to
That's a
find it
great question.
and I couldn't because it's like this is pay per view. You should be able to hit someone with a ladder. Um,
Yeah.
like if it was TV, I could I guess see that maybe the network, but so I don't know. I was curious as to reason why they were given that directive, and I don't have that answer. I tried to find it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I have heard that a lot, and it does uh, seem like that they were kind of dancing around that throughout the
Well,
match. So
you hear it with Vince's commentary as well, which got kind of annoying. Whenever they did use it as a weapon, and Vince tried to cover for it. But yeah, I don't have the reason why. Um,
maybe
but
feedback from the first one. I don't
I
know.
don't I don't get what I don't think they did anything gratuitous in the first one that would have been like. How could anyone have any complaints about the first one other than Brett? It was like you promised me you wouldn't do this match with anyone but me because I brought it to you. Um, apart from Brett, who else could have any complaints about the first ladder match? I don't know.
No, I don't either.
So yeah, they get the match going. It's a really nice kind of back and forth. Both guys go for their finish straight away,
Yeah.
and then kind of play up like I almost got you. And then so I thought that was cool. They kind of
Absolutely.
come in hot. Uh, so again, just really gives it this big fight feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like both guys go for the finish right away. I had to in my notes. I put in a thing about like Sean working with his friends versus Taker working with his friends. This is what Sean
Yeah.
working with his friends looks like.
Yeah. Well, and I had even um, made a note earlier when he was being interviewed by Todd Pettengill, and where Sean's like, this is the only thing I have in my life. He was putting his buddy over. It's like only two people could have this match,
Yep.
everything. And I don't think it was like gratuitous or over the top or anything, but
Yeah.
he's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, especially looking at the caliber of the other matches on here, I'll wait till we get to the end. I have a couple of things I want to kind of pick your brain about.
Okay. Um, so we had one of the first spots that stuck out for me was Razor suplexing Sean from inside of the ring out, and then Sean's boot clips the guardrail
Yeah.
on the way down. And even without that, that looks like a brutal landing that Sean took. And
Yep.
obviously he was okay, but the sound that his foot made as it clipped the guardrail, it looked and sounded brutal.
Well,
Um,
and like you said, even the landing itself, he really wasn't braced all that well
yeah,
to take that landing.
and there wasn't a ton of space, obviously, because his boots hitting the thing. So it's just from that angle, from that height, the way he landed, it looked brutal. And then just his boot hitting the metal guardrail, it's like, oh, like they replayed it and it just looked brutal.
Yeah, and it did hit a loud little ping sound too
Yeah.
when he hit there. And I actually thought that maybe this is why they weren't really interested in having another one, like Sean and Razor.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Razor goes for the Razor's Edge. There's an escape. Super kick misses, and then they do the double clothesline, which I love when it's done well. The double clothesline spot, and then it's just sort of like action, 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 double clothesline, stalemate, and then
Yeah.
both just seeing both guys laying there, and it's just sort of like we're even. No one has the advantage. They're both exhausted. I love it when it's done well, and it was done very well here.
It was. It kind of resets the match almost.
Yeah. And it gives people a chance to kind of catch their breath and be like, oh, this is, yeah, very well done here. Let's see.
There were, I don't know what order they're in, but there was a couple times where, so if they weren't supposed to use the ladder as a weapon, some of the things they were doing to incorporate the ladder, like wedging it in the corner.
Yeah, and I guess that both Sean and Razor, who apparently didn't want to have this match to begin with, and then they're told you can't use the ladder as a weapon. I have Nash just recently, I think maybe 2 weeks ago or something on his podcast, had talked about that. I guess Sean in interviews have been like, oh, well, I figured out how to make it work. And then like Nash was like, no, like Hunter actually figured out a way to make that work. That I guess he gives Hunter credit for coming up with a lot of what you see here.
Yeah,
I
I've heard that too.
I don't know the truth, but I don't see why Nash would take credit from one of his friends and give it to another if that wasn't what really happened. But
Yeah,
whatever the case is, the ladder is used as a weapon here, and Vince's way to handle that is interesting here because whenever someone blatantly uses the ladder as a weapon, Vince is like, was that an accident? I think that was an accident. That was accidental. I don't know if that was accidental. Like he just like who is Vince covering for? Like who has a gun to Vince's head that he has to come up with these excuses? Like I just thought it was very strange that the word accident kept coming up in many spots in this match
that's true.
on
I didn't
Vince's
notice it at the
commentary.
time, but you're right.
Yeah, like it's like someone has a gun to Vince's head that Vince is terrified of that he has to like, no, that was an accident. I think that was. It's just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what does someone have over Vince that he's like scared
Yeah,
shitless on commentary here?
yeah. I mean, maybe that had to be explained to some person over the pay-per-view or one of the TV stations. I
Yeah,
don't know.
whoever it was, like Vince seemed. It didn't seem like it was coming from Vince. Like it seemed like it was coming from someone else that Vince had to keep happy.
Yeah,
And that was how Vince tried to do it. Because Sean and Razor would probably like, oh, I don't give a fuck. Like, better to ask for, and a
forgiveness and
pop
ask for permission.
forgiveness than permission. So, um, but yeah, just Vince trying to cover up for that by using the word accidental a million times. Um, I thought it stood out to me a lot.
Yeah, yep. And they replayed, well, not replayed, but they how to describe it. They did Shawn Michaels' cheek peek again in this match with Shawn's pants getting pulled down.
Yeah. Well, even like I kind of want to rewind a little bit because it's sort of like so
Okay.
Razor does a fall-away slam to Shawn off the second rope, and they go a while and have some really really good action before anyone even goes for the ladder, which I thought was
Yeah.
a smart strategy in like a singles ladder match where it's not like the multiple like the Money in the Banks or the TLCs where you've got 6 guys, 8 guys that can like take car crash bumps one after another, or it's like I feel like the pacing of a singles ladder match has to be different. So I like that they had a lot of really good action before anyone even got the ladder.
Yeah.
And so it was after that fallaway slam off this from the second rope that Razor gets the ladder, and then they cut a couple times to Sid in the back watching a monitor. And they did a good job of saying, like, Sid gets the winner of this for the title. And they did a
And
good job of, like, look what these guys went through in this match, and now they have to fight Sid afterwards in this condition after what they've done to themselves. They did
yeah.
a good job of telling that story.
Well, yeah, and even though it was just him sitting there watching a monitor, it really the way they presented it, it's like, yeah, this guy is scouting his
Right.
next opponent, maybe mentally taking notes. But yeah, that was a cool little um, just a little added thing to what we can expect after following this match.
Right. And I always like when they can employ a little logic in pro wrestling because we don't get enough of that. And so I like when it's sort of like, okay, these guys are having a violent match where this is going to shorten careers. And then, was it the next night on Raw? They said the winner would wrestle Sid. I don't remember
I
if they specified that it was going to be the following night on Raw or
really,
not.
I don't think it was. I want to say
Okay.
it was at like the Next in Your House,
Okay.
but I could be wrong. Tony is just going to have an aneurysm listening to this.
So yeah, Sean misses a baseball slide. Razor's carrying the ladder. Sean misses a baseball slide, gets a really stiff right hand from Razor, and I know we always put over how good his punches and his slaps are. Um, so then, yeah, they do the repeat of the spot where Sean's tights get pulled down. There's a big pop as there was last time.
Yeah.
The first one, it was so cool where like he does an elbow drop off the ladder with his ass hanging out. Like
Yep.
that was so fun. That was one of the best highlights of the first one.
Yep.
This time he just pulls him back up. Um, Sean and the ladder topple over with Sean's leg caught between the rungs.
Yeah.
How good was that executed? Like that looked like, okay, this dude could never walk again. Like,
Yeah. It's like I could hear his tendons ripping.
yeah,
Watching him go
and
down with
the
that.
way he did that was so masterful. Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's lots of like creative offense here that Razor does using the ladder to target Sean's leg. Vince keeps questioning of the use of the ladder is accidental, um, which again, I guess that's a question that we're not going to have answered here tonight.
Yeah. We should follow up on that because, like, I
Yeah,
did notice it, but now that we're talking about it, it does seem like there was, because that's Vince's job on commentary is to tell the story of what the guys are doing in the ring. So,
yeah. So then, yeah, Sean turns it around. He hits the moonsault off the ladder, which is a really nice looking spot. He goes up to the tippy top for a splash and misses. Um, both guys climb the ladder, topple outside. Um,
but and they had that spot too where the ladder's going over, and they're both on it, and so they both get kind of crotched on the rope.
yeah, and like Sean's Razor's he doesn't hit his quite the way Sean does, but yeah, they both do that, go to the outside.
Yeah, it's almost like his knee was hanging over more than like
Yeah,
his crotch. Sean
which,
was always amazing at taking those.
yeah, if Sean's getting crotched on the ropes, he's going to go all out and do it. But,
Yeah.
so then one thing, and I really, this is probably a small detail, but I really like this detail. When they're on the outside, Razor is kind of positioned so like the ring apron's up a little bit, and Razor, just by virtue of the way he happened to land, can see under the ring.
Yeah.
Really nice touch for me when they bring up the second ladder that he happened to see.
Yep.
That there was a second one under the ring, because this was in the era the ladder match was still a new thing, and it's not like now where it's like, okay, there's a ladder match and there's 40 ladders outside the ring, in the ring, under the ring, different sizes. Like, so the fact that, like, in this era, I don't think it would have crossed anyone's mind that there would even be a second ladder.
Nope.
And the way they positioned that's how Razor knew and spotted it was just very nicely done, I thought.
Because it even looked like the ring apron had kind of just been messed up from the fall.
Right.
Like, it wasn't really obvious that he was, poking around under there. That did look really smooth.
Yeah, it looked like this just happened to be a thing that Razor happened to spot. It wasn't something he was looking for. Little thing, but it just, I like those kind of details that just make sense. They're logical, and the way it was executed was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he comes around, pulls out the other one, and like you could hear the crowd, like when he starts pulling it out, they're like, "Oh yeah."
Like, oh, there's more than one of these things? Like,
yeah.
Because this was a new match. So it's sort of like, it would never cross anyone's mind that there would be a second ladder. Like, what happens now? Like, what does this look like?
And they're able to do a lot more with one or two than some people, later. The exception of, like, Edge, Christian, and the Hardys. Yeah, they're able to just get so much out of. Well, and then even in their first one, the ladder almost broke.
And that one, I believe there was not a backup.
Yeah.
That first time, so.
Yeah, I don't think there was either. I've heard from a lot of people.
Because it didn't lay flat when they tried to climb it towards the end of the match, because the ladder got pretty mangled. Yeah. And it was kind of wobbly, even for the finish and stuff. But yeah, I like how, Razor just happened to notice it. Yeah. And of course, bring it into the match. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And so that's the thing. There were so many different little, I don't know, like little chapters of this match. Like the double clothesline kind of brings them down or resets it. They go outside. They're laying there, and now Razor is bringing a new ladder in. Just so many different little stories that they were able to tell back to back.
Yeah. So then Razor's climbing toward, he sets up a ladder. He's climbing toward the belt. Shawn sets up the second ladder, climbs that up, knocks Razor off, jumps for the title, and then misses and takes a nasty looking fall.
Yeah. I mean, this little bit right here is the only thing that seemed like it was just that the timing was just off for what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because wait a second. Oh, so I skipped something. So there's a Razor's Edge off the ladder.
Yeah.
And both of them stay down for a while. Oh, yeah, because then, okay, so Razor gets up first, climbs towards the belt. Shawn knocks him off. And then he takes his tumble. Didn't get the title the first time. So then, and I don't know if this was called on the fly. I feel like with these guys it could have been, because maybe he was probably supposed to get it the first time.
Yeah.
So then Razor sets up Shawn for the Razor's Edge. Shawn counters it. They're by the ropes, so he does a backdrop from inside of the ring out to the floor. So that gives him time to set up the ladder again.
Yeah.
Goes up, grabs the title, and then falls empty-handed once again.
Yeah, and it looked like he had both hands right on the bottom of that strap.
And all his body weight coming down. Those snaps
those snaps
are strong as hell.
Kryptonite or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what would have happened if the belt was the same way it was the way it was originally hung.
Yeah.
It was weird though the way the ref hung it the first time. Like it just didn't look right. Um,
Well, and it didn't look right from like a fan's perspective. Like they can
right,
look
the
up and see
audience
it.
couldn't see it clearly.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think there
Yeah.
would be more of a risk of the belt just coming unsnapped on its own, the position it was originally hung. Little did we know that someone apparently super glued, maybe one of the clique members with their super glue, those pranks, super glued the strap, the snaps in. So he
Well, and
misses.
I was gonna
Okay.
say I've seen clips from ladder matches at like indie shows where that has happened.
Yeah, the belt just falls, like just from,
Yeah.
yeah, the vibration of the arena. And so Sean was not wrong to readjust it prior to the match. But um, so yeah, the second time he's hanging from it, he falls, he's empty-handed again, and then we got a full-on Sean temper tantrum. He's slamming the ladder down. He's visibly pissed off.
Yep.
Um, and he finally goes up, gets it the third try. Um, big pop. Everyone's happy except Sean, who I'm
Yeah.
sure is gonna fester about this. And uh, so then Razor takes the belt from Sean, spins him around, and then he hands him the title, shakes his hand, and gives him a hug. Um, how do you compare this to the first one?
Um, it's really weird to say that you can have two guys wrestle the same match with the same stipulation, but have them tell pretty different stories with them.
Yeah, they did that.
Yeah. I, I was thinking about this when I was watching it. I'm not sure which one I personally like more. And I think that's going to come down to what was going on with their program when the match happened.
I think that's. I agree with you. I think you have to, because if you look at just the quality of the match from bell to bell, I think these two matches are dead even. But
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with the first one, edging out this one, because the storyline going into the first one was so perfect with the imposter championship and Sean never lost it, and there's two belts, and then you had a clear-cut heel and a clear-cut baby face. We're here, both these guys are pretty much baby faces. Like the story was just so perfect going into the first one. And then also,
Like when Sean gets tied up in the ropes at the end of the first one.
yeah, and then the
It
elbow
is.
drop with his ass hanging out, like, and the fact that for all intents and purposes, it was the first one. I know it
Yeah.
wasn't the first ladder match, but for all intents and purposes, it was the first one for a broad audience on a major pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So the fact that it was basically the first, I'd have to say that WrestleMania 10 edges this one out a little bit, even though the in-ring action bell to bell, I think it's even.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I think the like you said, there's two championship belts, which was a really, if you have two belts and you need to kind of unify them, hanging like the look of them both hanging from the ceiling was just
Yeah.
such a cool look.
Yeah. And I did make a note here because one thing that always bothered me about the first one is I think it was Ric Flair that said when he saw the first ladder match that Sean had a match with the ladder. And I know when we covered the first one that that was really unfair and untrue because Razor brought it in the first match. but Shawn, for some reason, gets all the credit for the first
Yeah.
match, even though both of them did a spectacular job in the first match.
Yeah.
This time, watching this match, if I had to pick an MVP, I think it would be Razor in this match. I think he kind of outshined Shawn a little bit here as far as his performance. I mean, even though he wasn't the one doing moonsaults and shit, and again, this is kind of nitpicky, but if I had to, gun to my head, pick an MVP of this match, it would be Razor. And I just kind of wanted to say that because I know Shawn gets all the credit for these matches, and that always kind of bothered me.
Yeah, because Shawn wasn't having a match with the ladder.
No. He could, but in that particular case, he didn't. There was another very talented performer in the ring who was carrying his end of the match.
Well, and then Shawn's dive off the top. I mean, that is an iconic shot.
Oh, yeah.
In there.
You still see it every time you watch a Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view. You still see that in the opening thing. Shawn coming off the ladder, just like him coming down on the little zip line in WrestleMania 12. They always show that.
Yep. Yeah, I think I probably do personally prefer the first one. This one, that's the thing. Even without having, like you said, an imposter champion and an interim champion, the idea of Shawn, he was on, history shows that he was on the losing end of that match. So even though there's not the same idea of two different champions with two different belts, it still makes a lot of sense that, Shawn, the only thing he has in his life is the Intercontinental Championship. It's the most important thing for him, and he thinks that that's a blemish on his record that he wants to erase.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also an effective story point for this. But
yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic match.
So what I had some thoughts after the match that I wanted to get your input on. After the first match, they didn't shake hands. Shawn was a little squirrely heel, and Razor was victorious, standing on top of the ladder, holding both belts. Is such another cool great shot. Yeah. It is. And there isn't anything else like that I know of.
Yeah.
This one, he spins him around, gives him the belt. Is this their Bret and Perfect moment from SummerSlam years ago? Two guys in that same position in the card, in the roster, having an Intercontinental title match that's gonna steal the show. Is this their SummerSlam moment, like what Bret and Hennig had?
I think perhaps. I mean, the interesting thing about this time is Razor never made it past this level of being the IC champ, and he won it 4 times, which was a record at that time. But so this was as high as he got, and Shawn was on a trajectory upwards. So it's kind of weird that this was a weird point in time, because it's almost like they actually weren't kind of equals. It was sort of like,
Shawn was trying to crawl out of this. Not crawl, but Shawn is going to go into the main event very soon. And I guess with Bret and Perfect, Bret was just coming into his own as a singles star.
Right. And I think probably at this point, Shawn probably knew what was happening at Mania, because I know they booked pretty far in advance at that point. So I think, this was probably just like, let's go down and tear the house out as buddies.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked for a while how the last couple of years have been, in case of emergency, use Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Taking a look at what was going on here, in case of emergency, use the Click.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think out of all of the politics in wrestling, I've heard the most negative comments about Shawn and the Click, and this time in wrestling. But they wouldn't have been able to get away with that if they weren't putting out the work.
And if they didn't deliver in the ring, they would have no power.
Yeah. And that's not to downplay, the backstage stuff, but
I've heard some pretty brutal stories from people that I think are probably being honest.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I could just keep seeing the parallels to Bret and Perfect, but there really wasn't a torch being passed in this match either.
Right.
But it was, like when Bret lost the IC title in SummerSlam 92, that was his path into the world title. Shawn's going to come out here winning as the Intercontinental Champion. But just, I don't know, maybe it's just the image of two friends who are just some of the greatest performers in the era they were in and out of their whole wrestling class. So it was pretty cool. This, I thought, was able to do a lot more than just be a spot fest with the ladder match.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's my match of the night. This has been SummerSlam. We'll catch up with you later.
We need to go to summer school, though.
Well played.
So we cut to Dean Douglas, who was totally not in Pittsburgh in the arena. It is a satellite feed. He is somewhere else. Totally not in the building. They have made that clear all night. And so Dean grades this match. And this was, I thought, the best out of the segments because he's defining bad. Because Razor's the bad guy. And he's like, we're going to define bad. And
yeah, this was funny. This was well done.
Yeah, and I know if you've seen any sort of shoot interview with Shane Douglas, you know how he feels about, in particular, Shawn and Razor. He feels about them the way Cornette feels about Russo, I think. Like, just, like, if I had a gun. Like, but I just love how into, like, we're going to define bad, and then he gives, like, the literal definition of bad, and then he gives, like, the slang version of bad. And I like he's like, but the slang version of bad means good, so we're not going to use that here.
Yeah.
Because this was not good. Like, which I just, like, just the way he performed this was just so good.
Yeah, it was very well done.
Just talking shit, being funny, and then Razor interrupts, and I don't know how that happened because Razor just left the match.
I know.
In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I don't know how he, without even changing his ring gear, went to wherever the hell Dean Douglas was conducting summer school remotely.
That was a cool little spot, and like when he nailed Douglas in the face, you could hear that smack.
Yes, you can.
That was a great build-up for what these guys are going to go on to do.
Yeah, it was a good build-up. I just really love the whole, like, we're going to define bad. And, like, he did it so well. And then, Razor smacks the shit out of him. I just don't like the detail that all night they've been telling us.
It's a satellite classroom.
He's elsewhere. And then Razor immediately after the match finds him. I just don't like that. Um,
Yeah.
I like the little details when they're done well, and I try to give them credit. And then when the little details are bad, I got to call them on that too.
Yeah.
But that was a fun little segment, and like you said, it sets up for things to come.
Yeah. Because then Sean will relinquish the Intercontinental title.
After the entire U.S. Marine Corps jumped Sean.
Yeah. And then, he will, Dean will hold that belt for a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have to move on. I have to be clocked in 20 minutes.
Okay, I think we can get through this in 20 minutes. World title match, we got the champion Diesel defending against Mabel. I'm sure he was pumped going into this match as the champ. Mabel is carried to the ring, which
that always
kudos
looked.
To the people carrying him
I
on
know.
that huge ass platform and the throne and stuff. Pettengill interviews Diesel, who yells about going medieval on Mabel.
Yeah.
This was not his best promo. I don't like Diesel yelling. I like Big Daddy cool.
Well,
You know,
and that's one thing he said. He's like, Diesel's gone, Big Daddy Cool is here, and I thought that would have made more sense if it were reversed.
I noticed that as well and made the same observation. He just like Diesel yelling sounds like I'm an 80s wrestler cutting an 80s wrestling promo. Like it doesn't sound natural coming out of him because he's so laid back. So just
Yeah.
him yelling about and this was 95, so Pulp Fiction was hot, talking about going medieval on Mabel.
Yep.
um,
So one thing that I forgot was from this match, the clip where he's getting in the ring and it's shot up at him on the stairs and the pyro's going off.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
see him just kind of like roaring like a lion. Was a
yeah,
really, really cool look.
yeah. And that's another thing about Diesel is because he was Big Daddy cool and always so laid back that when he got intense, it didn't work for me in a promo. But in the ring, when he would get fired up and like, okay, playtime's over, like, and it's
Yeah,
scary.
it is. Um, so yeah, the promo, I think I agree with you. It was kind of, I don't know, it wasn't the best thing for him, but like I said, just that shot of him just standing there, looking up because he is just enormous and the pyro, and it's like, yeah, kind of got chills. That was
Yeah,
cool.
it was a cool shot. And again, props to the camera work. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things on this show we've talked about really good camera work here.
yeah,
Um, they say, and I didn't pay attention that much because I don't really care. Apparently, Lex and Bulldog are somehow involved in this feud.
yeah,
I didn't pay enough attention to whatever. Um,
yeah.
um, yeah, the match gets going. Some shoulder blocks, and as my autocorrect said, firearms are thrown. I believe that was supposed to be forearms by Diesel. Diesel hits two ridiculous running clotheslines in the corner where
Yep.
he gets so much momentum, and it looks like, one thing I dislike is when people talk about like a spot and, oh my god, the ring moved, and it's like the ring didn't move. Like, it's stop saying that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This looked like it could have moved the ring because he had so much momentum with those clotheslines in the corner.